Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Board of County Commissioners meeting to order. All the commissioners are present here today in the building, and Commissioner Hagan, for the record, is downstairs to present a proclamation. With that, we're going to have our pledge and invocation by our chaplain, Commissioner Stacy White. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll ask that everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the people behind the causes that will be recognized this morning by the County Commission. We pray that you will guide this board, staff, and stakeholders as we make decisions that are important for this county. And as always, I ask for blessings for our first responders, members of our armed forces, and that you will guide them and keep them safe each and every day. I give these thanks and ask for these blessings in your heavenly name. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner White, and we'll present 3 recognitions today. The recipients are joining the meeting virtually, and Commissioner Hagan will present the first recognition. Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a real treat for me to present this commendation to a man who I have respected and admired for a long time. Today we're here to recognize an incredible accomplishment in college athletics, the milestone of 1,000 career wins by head coach of the USF softball team, Coach Ken Eriksen. In addition to Coach Eriksen, with us today is USF's Athletic Director Michael Kelly and Deputy AD Chris Pierce, and I'd like to, they're right here right behind me. That's great. Having played college baseball, I can tell you Coach Eriksen is a player's coach. Prior to coaching at USF, Coach Eriksen played baseball for the Bulls, where he played 5 positions and had a career batting average of .315 and an earned run average of 2.48. After his college days, he began playing men's fast pitch softball, where he excelled. In 1986, only a year after he began playing, he landed with the Clearwater Bombers. This resulted in extensive international play, including 8 international softball Congress World Championships and 8 ASA Men's National Championships. In 1992, player Eriksen was named a first-team All-World catcher. Coach Eriksen started his coaching career with USF softball back in 1989 and became the head coach in 1996. From that point on, USF softball has been a force in NCAA play, making it to the final Sweet 16 4 separate times: 1998, 2001, 2006, and 2012. Coach Eriksen also joined the staff at Team USA back in 1998 and was named head coach in 2011 and remains at that helm today. During his time with Team USA, Coach has led teams to numerous championships, including 2 at WBSC Worlds, 5 at the World Cup of Softball, 2 at ISF Worlds, and 2 at Pan American Games. Last month, Coach Eriksen led Team USA to a silver medal, 5-1 record in the Olympics. In a contest punctuated with a world-class athleticism, our team's only loss came in the gold medal game against host nation Japan. Coach Eriksen's contributions both on and off the field sets him apart. The entire Tampa Bay area is proud and thankful for his commitment to excellence. And I'm pleased to read this commendation, which states, the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners is pleased to congratulate Ken Eriksen, head coach of the University of South Florida softball team, for his 1,000th career victory, a historic milestone in the annals of National Collegiate Athletic Association sports. The Bulls leader since 1997 and a former USF baseball player, Coach Eriksen has developed the softball program into one of the university's best, guiding it to 15 NCAA tournament appearances, including a trip to the Women's College World Series in 2012. Mr. Eriksen is more than a gifted coach. Foremost, he is a teacher whose teams have a 100% graduation rate, which is incredible. And his players view him as a parental figure who teaches life lessons in addition to sharing outstanding knowledge of softball. Further, Coach Eriksen lends his skills to the U.S. national team, leading the squad to numerous championships as head coach. It is fitting that on April 30th, 2021, at the USF softball complex, Coach Eriksen became just the 28th NCAA Division I coach to record 1,000 wins as the Bulls defeated East Carolina behind a no-hitter by All-American pitcher Georgina Korick. After the game, Coach Eriksen was his customary self, more excited about his pitcher's gem than his momentous achievement. The Board of County Commissioners of Hillsborough County, Florida, does hereby commend USF softball head coach Ken Eriksen for being a shining example of what's great about intercollegiate athletics and wishes him and his team continued success on and off the diamond. Award this 18th day of August 2021, signed by all 7 Board of County Commissioners. Coach, it's my pleasure to present this commendation to you. Congratulations, and would you please say a few words?
Thank you. Commissioner Hagan, very gracious individual to me and my school. I've made Hillsborough County my home since 1979. I can honestly tell you right now that going across the world and coming back to Tampa, there's no place I'd rather be, which is obvious. And I'm so proud to represent not only this county worldwide, but also do justice to the Tampa Bay area in respect to what we do at USF and how we treat people, how we continue to treat people. And once again, I'm humbled and I'm honored, and I wish everybody on this commission good luck during this tough time, making sure this county specifically stays safe. But thank you again, Ken. Appreciate it. Commissioners, thank you so much.
Michael, you want to say a few words?
Thank you, Commissioner Hagan, and to all the Board of County Commissioners. I'm Michael Kelly, Athletic Director at USF, and just want to express my appreciation for your recognition of Coach Eriksen and our program at large. I mean, Ken Eriksen to be the ultimate representative of what Team USA, and obviously what we like to call up on Fowler Avenue Team USF, and coming off one of our best overall seasons in history, to have 10 of our programs achieve postseason recognition, including Ken Eriksen's going on to the final game of the regional finals. We just can't express our appreciation enough for your support of your hometown team, USF Bulls. So thank you, Commissioner, and thank you all of you for recognition of Ken's great performance. Thank you.
And again, I just want to thank Coach and Michael Kelly for everything they do for this community, both on and off of the softball field and all the athletic fields. They do an incredible job. We're very fortunate to have these two men at the helm of USF. So again, congratulations. And Madam Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. And with that, we will move to our next recognition. It will be presented by Commissioner Myers. Commissioner, you're recognized.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair. The following guests here this morning: Lee Lowry, Chair of Hillsborough County Commission on Status of Women; Marvin Martin Sr., Countess Cooper, and Doretha Wynn Edgecombe.
We're here.
Hello and welcome. I'm deeply honored to present this very special recognition. Throughout the history of Hillsborough County, we have been blessed to have women leaders who have helped our county grow and prosper, broke barriers to help others become successful, and inspired countless individuals to contribute to their communities. Hillsborough County's Commission on the Status of Women is at the forefront of ensuring that deserving women of diverse backgrounds and interests are recognized for improving the lives of women in all the residents of Hillsborough County. An advisory group to the Board of County Commissioners, the COSW selects nominees to the county's Women Hall of Fame. Today, we are honoring 3 distinguished inductees: the late Mary Alice Dorsett, the late Jeanette Spragging Martin, and Doretha Wynn Edgecombe. These pioneers comprise the class of 2020. We were not able to honor them last year because of the coronavirus pandemic, but we are making up for it today. Now, I would like to read this commendation. It reads: the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners applaud the Hillsborough County Commission on the Status of Women for honoring women whose contributions have lasting positive impacts, and proudly recognizes Mary Alice Dorsett, Jeanette Sprangy Martin, and Doretha Wynn Edgecombe for their induction into the Hillsborough County Women's Hall of Fame. The late Ms. Dorsett was a tireless influence on civil, economics, and political rights of African Americans, serving as a thriving business owner and the first African American candidate to run for public office in Hillsborough County. The late Ms. Martin was a true pioneer as the first African American city clerk for the city of Tampa and president of the American Society of Public Administrators. Ms. Edgecombe had a prosperous 52-year career as a junior high school English teacher and served 12 years on the Hillsborough County School Board. The Board of County Commissioners of Hillsborough County, Florida, does hereby commend Mary Alice Dorsett, Jeanette Sprangy Martin, and Doretha Wynn Edgecombe for their remarkable achievements and service, and encourages the community to celebrate these distinguished women, executed this 18th day of August 2021. And Chair Laurie, we'll start with you if you would like to give some remarks.
I certainly would. Thank you so much, Commissioner Myers. Thank you all for being here and for your support of the Commission on the Status of Women. And as you noted, the Commission on the Status of Women is a wonderfully diverse group of women who represent a variety of organizations, viewpoints, and experiences. I know I have a number of my fellow commissioners watching with me this morning on the county channel and YouTube, and I support of the women in our community. And on this call is Dottie Gruber-Skipper, one of our community's strongest fighters of the crime of human trafficking, and I'm so happy to have her here on this call. The Commission on the Status of Women was created to study and make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on issues pertaining to the status of women, including discrimination, employment, education, and healthcare. These recommendations are presented to the BOCC. We've been slowed a bit in our work by the pandemic, but we also know that the work is more vital than ever. And this morning I am so pleased to be here to help honor the newest inductees into the Hillsborough County Women's Hall of Fame. As Commissioner Myers mentioned, their incredible accomplishments, they are an amazing class of honorees. We are humbled to be with them and their families today. These women truly broke ground for us, and we are grateful. But again, the work is not done. Today I'm wearing white, the traditional color of the women's suffrage movement. Next Thursday is the 101st anniversary of the passing of the 19th Amendment, which gave some women the right to vote in America. We've come a long way, but as we look around at our country and at the world, we know that we have a lot further to go. Our honorees today set the example, and I encourage all of us to continue to follow it. Thank you so much, and congratulations to the families and to Ms. Edgecombe.
Thank you, Chair Laurie. Ms. Cooper is the daughter of inductee Mary Alice Dorsett. Ms. Cooper, would you like to give your remarks?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. On behalf of my mother, Mrs. Mary Alice Dorsett, posthumously, and her family, I am pleased to accept this commendation award. We thank the Board of County Commissioners and especially Commissioner Gwen Myers, ardent community leader and church worker, for this great honor. Growing up in my mother's house, I saw her strive daily to make a positive impact on the world around her, especially for those in need. She was a pioneering, trailblazing woman that had many firsts to her name, of which you've already heard. In addition to that, Vogue magazine commended her for registering over 30,000 people to vote. And Doris Weatherford, you know her, Harvard historian, author, and resident of Tampa, writes in her book entitled Real Women of Tampa and Hillsborough County. She established a faith mission in 1962 to provide food, shelter, and guidance to the needy. She founded an employment agency, and the North Tampa branch of the Hillsborough County Tax Collector's Office was named for her in 2001. Mother was always self-employed, 66 plus years, primarily in non-traditional roles for women. Wow. Businesswoman, civil and voting rights leader, mother, daughter, sister, trusted confidant, as well as courageous, fierce, and compassionate community and church leader. Her mentor was the late great African-American educator Nannie Helen Burroughs of Washington, D.C., also a visionary women's suffrage businesswoman and consummate church leader. She groomed my mother and told her to go make a difference in the world, and that she did. Our county community church, Greater Bethel Baptist Church, and family is forever impacted by the labor and legacy of Mrs. Mary Alice Dorsett. May she long live on. On behalf of my brother, Lieutenant Colonel retired U.S. Army Dwayne Oswald Hill, myself, Chaplain Lieutenant Colonel Countess Clark Cooper, and my god sister, Miss Harriet Scott, as well as a host of extended family. Again, we thank you for this commendation. And I leave you with the following poem written by yours truly, inspired by today's event, entitled A Prayer Call for Pioneering Women. Arise, pioneering women, the time is now. O ever-present God, please show us how. There's sure to be struggles and opposition too. Increase our faith and trust, O God. Carry us safely through. Our dreams can be realized. Our visions can come true. For you have placed them inside of us to show us what to do. Against tyranny we must resist. Fight the good fight on each mission. Let us waver not in the face of foes. Your purpose for our lives is bigger than any opposition. Now, God of strength and nurture, make us one with you. Give us love, power, and a sound mind. Grant us grace and wisdom too. Pioneering women arise. The time is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Mr. Marvin Martin is the spouse of inductee Jeanette Spragging Martin. Mr. Martin, I believe you are on the phone. Would you like to give your remarks?
Yes, on behalf of my late wife, I'm honored for this day. I'm honored for this event. I'm honored for the induction to the Hall of Fame. After graduating from A&M, I got drafted, went to Vietnam. And when I got out of Vietnam 2 years later, I was ready to settle down, get a master's degree, get married, have children, and just live happily. And after graduating from A&M, I didn't have a wife in place, so I went to FSU to get a specialist degree. And 3 weeks at FSU, I ran into the love of my life. I ran into Jeanette Spraggins of Miami, Florida. And it was love at first sight, and I knew she was the one. So the next year, 72, we got married. She graduated, and I graduated, got my specialist. She got a BS. She got a job here in Tampa, and she worked for Moss Brothers for 2 years. And after 2 years of Moss Brothers, she went to the city, and her career took off with highly success. She was in the right place at the right time, and she was started out as a procedures analyst for the city. And after being there for about 2 or 3 years, she moved to industrial engineer, and then she became the chairman of the Department of Industrial Engineering for the city of Tampa. And then, after about 6 years as chairman of the Department of Industrial Engineering, she was selected to be the first African-American city clerk. And from that, she joined organizations like the City of Tampa Credit Union, Tampa Bay Federal, and she was on the board. And then she became the first African-American chairman of that board. And also she joined the League of Women Voters, and being on that board, she became the first president of the League of Women Voters. And she joined ASPA, and she became the president of ASPA. She was a leader. She was a born leader, and she had success with the city. And we had a wonderful career, and we have 2 sons, Marvin and Morris. Marvin is a teacher here in Hillsborough County, and Morris worked in the school system for so many years. Now he's with the University of South Florida, and he's having success. And we have 3 grandchildren. She never met the grandchildren, but I'm here for her, and life goes on. We had success, and I want to thank everybody for this organization and for she moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Ms. Edgecombe, would you like to share your remarks?
Good morning. Good morning, commissioners. And thank you, Mrs. Commissioner Myers, one of my fellow and former students, to the staff, and those joining us virtually this morning. It is such an honor to have my name in the same sentences with Mary Alice Dorsett and Jeanette Martin, and to be a member of the 2020 class to be inducted into the Hillsborough County Women's Hall of Fame. Mrs. Dorset was indeed bold and fearless. She was a trailblazer. And my Delta Sigma Theta sorority sister, Jeanette Martin, was the ultimate professional who broke the glass ceiling in many areas. They are extraordinary role models, worthy of being admired and emulated. I am so appreciative of the Hillsborough County Commission on the Status of Women for thinking my life's work is deserving of this incredible recognition. And a special thank you, Commissioners, for the time on your agenda and today's tribute. We all, I believe, have an obligation to leave this world a better place than we found it. And I hope I have done that in some small way. Love and thank you to my daughter Allison, my family and friends, and all of the positive and encouraging examples in my life. I am truly honored and humbled by this recognition. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity to be grateful and to express my gratitude. Thank you and good morning to all.
Thank you, Ms. Edgecombe. I'd just like to share a few words regarding the inductees this morning. The women inductee today, they're fearless. Their contributions to our community were priceless. And it was an honor for me to read this commendation as they were selected to come into the Hall of Fame for the status of Commission on Women. So thank you to all of the members of the Commission on the Status of Women and our Hall of Fame inductees and their loved ones for highlighting the contributions of women in our community. Madam Chair, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Myers. I see Commissioner White, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to send my heartfelt congratulations to Ms. Cooper and Mr. Martin on behalf of Ms. Dorset and Ms. Martin, respectively. But I especially want to congratulate my old school board colleague, Doretha Edgecombe. Doretha, it was an honor for me to get to serve alongside you. You are so deserving of this recognition, and I just want to say that it is so good to see you.
Thank you, and I appreciate that very much, Commissioner.
Thank you. Ms. Edgecombe, I just think a word for all of us, and I appreciate that you stated we all have an obligation to leave this world a little better than we found it, and you certainly have, and so have your colleagues this morning that we've recognized. So thank you to all the women in the Hall of Fame moving forward. Well deserved.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll move to our last recognition that's to be presented by Commissioner White. Commissioner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe I have Michelle Walker, Executive Director of Miracles Outreach, here today.
Yes, I'm here.
Very good. Thank you so much for being here with us virtually this morning. And again, good morning, Ms. Walker, and welcome. Since 2000, Miracles Outreach has done a remarkable job in providing foster care and other services to Florida youth and their families. The number of homeless children in the state now exceeds over 29,000, and it takes dedicated organizations like Miracles Outreach to assure that all children are loved and cared for in stable homes. The organization has clearly shown that it is a safe haven for children who are homeless, have been abused, or were victims of human trafficking. It is my honor today to present this commendation recognizing their hard work and accomplishments as Miracles Outreach celebrates its 20th anniversary. Ms. Walker, I believe we delivered the plaque to you this past Monday, and at this time I'd like to read, thank you. At this time I'd like to read the message on the plaque into the record. And it reads, the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners is pleased to recognize Miracles Outreach for the organization's 20 years of service in empowering at-risk youth to achieve self-sufficiency and improve quality of life. Serving the Tampa Bay community since 2000, Miracles Outreach has been steadfast in its humanitarian mission to provide a safe and nurturing environment for young people in need of a loving home. The nonprofit organization has served over 3,000 youth in foster care, offering educational and emotional development that provide a vital foundation throughout their lives. Miracles Outreach's foster programs house the second highest number of children in Hillsborough County, further illustrating its dedication and ongoing success. In addition to sponsoring mentorships, the organization has partnered with Hillsborough County on multiple housing initiatives, granting housing vouchers for victims of trafficking and providing affordable housing for homeless youth and youth who have aged out of the foster care system. After 20 years of service, Miracles Outreach remains a true sanctuary for young people seeking hope and compassion. The Board of County Commissioners of Hillsborough County, Florida, does hereby commend Miracles Outreach on the occasion of its 20th anniversary and wishes the organization many years of continued success. It's executed today, the 18th day of August, and signed by all the commissioners. And Ms. Walker, I'd like to turn the floor over to you to say a few words at this time.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Miracles Outreach and our board of directors, I would just like to say thank you, Commissioner White, as well as the entire board of county commissioners, just for recognizing and acknowledging this milestone of 20 years for Miracles Outreach for the service to the Hillsborough community. And it has been an honor and a pleasure to work with so many different people to be able to help us to really reach our goals and our vision over the last couple of years. Over the 20 years, different partnerships, it allowed us to grow from an after-school program to a full-service agency, being able to provide housing, assist families in need, and as you mentioned, 3,000 youth that have been served. We just continue to work hard and look forward to many more years of serving our community. And again, thank you to each one of you for your unselfish commitment that you all have for serving Hillsborough County. Thank you so much, and it is much appreciated.
Well, thank you so much. It's well-deserved, and we really appreciate you being here today to receive this recognition.
Thank you.
Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Ms. Walker, for all that you do. And thank you, Commissioner White, for celebrating Miracles Outreach. They have been a tremendous partner to this community and to our efforts to keep children safe and help them through very difficult situations, as well as our efforts to address and provide a safe haven for those children that have been trapped in human trafficking situations. They've been a terrific partner. And Ms. Walker, I can't tell you how much I appreciate all your efforts and the passion for the work that you do. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank all the recipients this morning for joining us and for making this world and this county a better place. So thank you all for all the work that you've done and contributions you've made for Hillsborough County and making a better world. And with that, we will move to public comments. The board welcomes comments from citizens about any issue or concern. Your opinions are valued in terms of providing input to board members. However, it is requested at the same time when you address the board that comments are not directed personally against a commissioner or staff member, but rather directed at the issues. This provides a mutual respect between the board members and the public.
Excuse me. I'm so sorry. We have changes to the agenda.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm sorry, I was having a microphone operator error.
I felt like I was missing something here, so.
All righty. Thank you. If that's okay, Commissioner,
You're ready.
Okay, thank you. We have one item that has been removed from consent for highlighting by Commissioner Smith, item A6. This is to authorize staff to schedule and advertise a public hearing to consider approving a public-private county construction agreement between the county and Lennar Homes for construction of a portion of the extension of County Road 672. At 10 a.m., item D1 is to conduct a public hearing and approve the proposed ordinance regulating establishments that offer hookah in the unincorporated areas of Hillsborough County. Item D2 at 10 a.m. is to conduct a public hearing and consider enacting by supermajority vote an ordinance extending the 1 cent local option fuel tax until December 31st, 2031. Item D3 at 10 a.m., conduct the second of 2 required public hearings to enter into a school concurrency proportionate share mitigation development agreement with the School Board of Hillsborough County and Greenpoint Communities for the proposed Rodine Pit subdivision. Item D4 at 10 a.m., conduct a public hearing to establish separate vote uniform rates for the various street lighting classifications for the 2021 tax year. And item D5 is to conduct a public hearing and consider affirming the recommendation of the hearing officer and Emergency Medical Planning Council that public convenience and necessity will not be promoted by approval of the application from Esteems of Florida, LLC. At 10:15, item E1 is a special appearance by Freddy Barton, Safe and Sound Hillsborough Executive Director, to present the 2020 Safe and Sound Hillsborough Annual Report. At 11 a.m., item G1 is to receive a report on local pandemic-related data, recovery programs, and strategic investments related to COVID-19. 11:45 is a recess for lunch. Those are the changes to the agenda.
Move the changes.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner White to move the changes, seconded by Commissioner Myers. Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
And thank you, and I might have made a little mistake in pulling A6 for highlighting. I see there's a third section for pulling items for discussion and questions, and that's really where this should go.
Okay. I don't think we have to do anything with regards to that. We'll just recognize that. And with that, we have a motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Myers. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. And with that, we're on to public comments. Okay. The board welcomes comments from citizens about any issue or concern. Your opinions are valued in terms of providing input to the board members. However, it is requested at the same time when you address the board that comments are not directed personally against a commissioner or staff member, but rather directed at issues. This provides a mutual respect between board members and the public. The board has set aside 45 minutes period in the morning immediately following changes to the agenda for public comments. At the discretion of the chair, the board may again hear public comments at the end of the meeting. Anyone who wishes to speak virtually or in person during the meeting may do so by completing the online public comment form found at hcflgov.net/speakup. The form is open for public sign-up 48 hours prior to the start of the meeting. An option is available to notify whether comments will be provided virtually or in person at the meeting. Additionally, in-person speakers will be able to sign up for on-site via kiosk or smartphone the day of the meeting. For participants who wish to speak virtually who have completed the form online, an audio call-in number will be provided to you after the form is received by the county. All speakers will be required to provide their name, email address, and telephone number on the online form. This information is being requested to facilitate the public comment process. Sign-ups for both virtual and in-person public speaking opportunities for public hearings and public comments close at 9 a.m. on the day of the meeting. The chair will call on speakers by name in the order in which their requests to speak have been received. Prioritization is on a first-come, first-served basis. The boardroom and the multi-center purpose room are designed for speakers only. Those who come to County Center to watch the meeting and not speak will be accommodated in the lobby area. Only the first 12 person sign-ups will be allowed in the boardroom for public comment. Anyone speaking in the boardroom must wear a mask. The multi-purpose room will be available for those residents who signed up to speak after the first 12 have registered, or for those people who cannot wear a mask due to a medical condition. Speakers are asked to leave the boardroom or multi-purpose room after sharing their comments with the board. All virtual speakers will be muted upon joining the board and will be unmuted after being recognized by the chair by name. Up to 3 minutes are allowed for each speaker. And with that, I will recognize the first speaker, Jason Kimball.
Hello, thank you, Board. So I want to discuss the presentation that you guys have set on item G1 and affect some of the policies that you guys seem to be making. First of all, the mask policy, the administrative directive, which I think is totally inappropriate. This should be an agenda item that's voted on so that we can see where all the commissioners stand. I think it's just totally ludicrous. There's no basis for the mask mandates that you've instituted on all county facilities. I really hope to see some sort of change in attitude, but this new policy of not allowing more than 12 people in the boardroom just indicates that we're going in the wrong direction. The boardroom should be totally open to the public. And if you're looking at the data in this report, which just solely focuses on new case, emergency department visits, these are absurd metrics. Where's the invasive ventilation rate data? Where's the fatality rate data? Where's the severe COVID cases rate data? That's people that have been hospitalized 10 days or longer. Why isn't that information included in this report? And I hope some of the less tyrannical commissioners will ask the questions to the presenter, and the presenter should be told, don't come back here with these reports if you don't have these important numbers, because what's in this report is just garbage. It tells you nothing, but it seems to be what's informing the county on its policies, which, in my opinion, totally contradict that of what the governor has said and what he's ordered, and also the First District Court of Appeals, Justin Green versus Alachua County. I mean, we've had to have the court step in. We've had to have the governor step in to control the tyrannical nature of the Board of County Commissioners. And it's like, I don't know if you guys really want to draw all this scrutiny onto yourselves over this issue. I think that there should be some hope for reason, for science even, for respect for our rights and our liberties and personal choice to come into play. And also in my remaining time, I want to discuss the vaccine. The investigational vaccine, which I see is included in this presentation, this is an investigational vaccine, a very dangerous one. If you look at the VAERS data and if you look at the qualified professionals' interpretation of the data, the amount of deaths that the vaccine has caused, what the ramifications are, there's no need to be including this, investigational vaccine data in the report or to be promoting it even. And that's my public comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Paige Drummond.
My name is Paige Drummond, and I'm here again to speak about animal control policies that continue to endanger our neighborhood. I'm requesting the county investigate with the comptroller audit to properly evaluate animal control policy and procedure. In 2018, Orange County conducted an audit, and it felt like I was reading about our own animal control. Orange County's audit revealed their department consistently failed to fully investigate dog bites resulting in severe injury. Their summary noted that lack of critical analysis led to misclassification of these dogs. The department recorded many cases of reoffending dogs that caused severe injuries after animal control downplayed severe injuries or victims declined to pursue the complaint. The auditor noted that for many of the cases, the dogs would be considered dangerous based on the content of their case files alone, and victim participation wasn't required. But Animal Services repeatedly used witness failure as an excuse to drop cases, despite the law not requiring a sworn statement, because ample documented physical evidence is available in the official record. When we discussed our dog's death, our vet was alarmed at the level of unprovoked aggression, and the first thing she said was, "This could have been a child." And it can happen to a child, and it did in Destin. In 2017, a 110-pound pit bull mauled a 5-year-old girl unprovoked. He grabbed her by the face and dragged her into a yard. The child lost an eyelid, suffered a broken jaw, and her face had to be put back together with hundreds of staples. While rescuing her, her mom was also attacked and needed 28 stitches for her own injuries. The family later sued an animal control officer and received an undisclosed settlement because that same dog had attacked its animal and another person at a local vet in 2015. The attack only stopped when the dog was stabbed in the neck. They argue that had the dog been correctly identified as dangerous back in 2015, the following attack in 2017 wouldn't have happened. And they're right. Surrounding counties are taking the simplest efforts within their own animal control departments to protect the community. Hernando and Sarasota, among others, have their dangerous dog registries publicly listed on their website. Pasco County ensures their responding animal control officer is a notary, so every victim statement taken is eligible in court. This is crucial because it ensures that when victims are being harassed by bite dog owners, who are often their own neighbors, animal control can't easily discard the case. And so what's this county's animal control doing to prevent fatal attacks from happening again? Absolutely nothing. What has always been most disturbing to us is when we pointed out the countless errors that occurred during every single attack with our bite dog, not once could animal control tell us what they plan to do differently. And it's clear there is no plan. And so this means they've made a promise to the community that it will happen again, and the community will continue to suffer because the department whose one job is to keep the community safe refuses to. So again, I'm insisting that this county conduct a comptroller audit to fix these fatal gaps in safety that continue to be ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Adrian Godsell.
Good morning, and thank you for letting me speak today. I'm here to discuss the Emergency Medical Planning Council and the illegal mask mandate. I hope you remember your oath. I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and the government of the United States and of the state of Florida, that I am duly qualified to hold office under the Constitution of the state, and that I will well and faithfully perform the duties of Hillsborough County Commissioner, of which I am about to enter. We are adults, parents, small private business owners, caregivers, and citizens of the state of Florida and the United States of America. We have to work for a living and therefore cannot show up en masse. You, as our county commissioners who took the oath that I opened with, I hope, have the integrity as American citizens and as Florida citizens and as civil servants to uphold our rights, our constitutional rights, and our God-given rights by harmonizing the home rule provision with our state's executive order for no mask mandates and recommending only the wearing of masks, recommending versus mandates. The mandate you have in place is against the law. You are going against your oath of supporting, protecting, and defending the Constitution of the United States and our state's Constitution. Small government for the people, by the people. Secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Please end the mask mandate and disband the Emergency Medical Planning Council. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Chrisanne Hall. Chrisanne Hall.
Ms. Hall, are you there? Ms. Hall, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. You can.
The irony of today's... I can begin?
Yes, you can begin.
Okay. The irony of today's board meeting apparently eludes this board. Today you recognized women in history who stood for their rights in the face of overreaching government actively denying their fundamental rights. Many paid such a dear price so their children could be heard in government, unencumbered by overreaching, right-denying policies. Today, you have, in this meeting, mandated masks, at the same time, overreaching oppressive government working to deny the voice of the people in government. Your imposition of mask mandates on county property and in county parks fundamentally denies Florida and Hillsborough County citizens their right to engage in free government. your oath, as was repeated to you already today, that you do solemnly swear or affirm that you will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and of the United States and of the state of Florida, is being violated by these mask mandate orders on government property. The very fundamental rights that are embodied to be protected by you through that oath, through the Florida Constitution, are being denied the people by forcing them to wear a mask to speak in front of you. This idea of separate but equal has been actively denied by the U.S. Supreme Court. So to say, oh, well, you can speak to us without a mask if you go to the back room. You can speak to us without a mask if you do it in the manner in which we tell you, is unconstitutional. It is the very overreaching government that the women in history you celebrated today stood against so their children could have a voice in government. Section 1, Article 1 of the Florida Constitution, all political power is inherent in the people. The enunciation herein of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or impair others retained by the people. So Article 1, Section 5, the people shall have the right to peaceably assemble, to instruct their representatives, and to petition for a redress of grievances. That right to peaceably assemble is an inherent, inalienable right that the founders of the state of Florida felt was so essential to the proper flow of government that they actually enumerated it in the first section of the Florida Constitution.
Your time is up. Your time is up. Thank you. We'll move to the next person. Jason Williams, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. My name is Jason Williams, and I'm a Hillsborough County resident. I have several concerns, particularly the way this county and this board, the direction we are going. I think this board needs to listen to the governor and the courts and stop mandating masks. I think we need to move forward with common sense. I think mandating children to wear masks in county parks is absolutely ludicrous. This is medical tyranny. I wish I was speaking there this morning in person. However, I believe that there is so much confusion basically on your part with the communication. I have communication at the meeting this morning was closed to the public. I've called your offices just for your staff to read off of the website, but I think you're allowed to go there now with only 13 or 12 people. The communication on your part is terrible at best, and as a resident, I think we deserve better. At any rate, it's this absolutely absurd what we have to put up with as citizens here. I feel that this board does not have the right, after the governor has lifted these mandates, to restrict us of our right to participate in our government. You guys are already barricaded with plexiglass on your thrones while limiting the public to petition our government. This is our right, as the former speaker said, the first speaker said, the second speaker said. I think you guys should get the point that this is unconstitutional and we have an inherent right to our freedom. I'm asking the BOCC to keep the public meetings open to in-person. I mean, I think we're smart enough to see where you guys are heading with this, and I would hate that the September meeting to be closed to the public. And I'm asking that the communication would be clear. Again, I would be there this morning if you guys didn't fail on your part to communicate properly. In conclusion, I wanted to ask each of you a question. Why does this body continue to defy Governor DeSantis' orders? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jeffrey Dow.
Can you hear me? My name is Jeff Dow. I served my country for 10 and a half years in the Navy and with the NSA. That really doesn't matter right now, other than to say that I read through data and analytics in order to form my own opinions. I found myself asking a lot of questions this past year. Let me ask you a very specific question. If you knew that forcing people to wear masks lowered the collective IQ of our children from 100 down to 79, would you still enforce it? What if you knew that you are train wrecking our next generation, all to allegedly save the lives of 0.0012 of our population? Based on a study from Brown University of 680 children that looked at verbal, nonverbal, and early learning skills in order to assess development compared to that of students in years previous, the results were staggering. There was a collective drop in IQ from 100 to 79, and it is associated with having to wear these masks. You may not have known that information before, but you do now. If you continue to enforce these draconian, unconstitutional rules, those actions are criminal. When this information continues to come out, and it will, you cannot say that you didn't know. You guys do keep saying, quote, our numbers are exploding. They're beyond anything that we've ever had before in Florida. I'm tired of being told that only this and only seeing partial data. If you're so concerned with how fast this is spreading, why have none of these doctors or any of you ever put out things that we can be doing to build up our immune systems? We never talk about vitamin D, vitamin C, echinacea, garlic. We never talk about getting direct sunlight so that our bodies can build up our natural immune systems. We're constantly told to keep our distance from people, wear a completely useless mask, and we're told to wash our hands of good and bacteria all the time. We always focus on the cases, but never mention anything about the numbers of deaths compared to those cases. If you were serious about these numbers, there would be some sort of delineation from COVID in 2019, COVID last year, and COVID this year. There would be a thorough breakthrough or breakdown of deaths per case in each of these years, but there isn't. We just talk about cases. Last year, 1,832 people died in COVID in Hillsborough County, and we've got 1.5 million that live here in this county. That's only 0.0012. We don't even know how many of those cases were of elder age or had underlying conditions like obesity. All of this data is hidden from the public. I propose right now that the medical community in Hillsborough provide documentation of the following criteria of patients: age, underlying conditions, date first tested positive COVID, type of test that they use, have they received any of the experimental drugs, did they die, and what was the cause of death. Stop making decisions based on full data.
Your time is up.
And
Your
start
time
making
is up.
decisions that make sense.
Your time is up. And we'll go to the next speaker, Julian Sutton.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. I would like to discuss mandatory mask mandates in Hillsborough County and Hillsborough County schools. Despite recent Centers for Disease Control Prevention guidance, forcing students to wear masks lacks a well-grounded scientific justification. Studies have shown that children are at a low risk of contracting a serious illness due to COVID-19, and children do not play a significant role in the spread of the virus, yet we want to mandate masks. Forcing children to wear masks could inhibit breathing, lead to the collection of dangerous impurities, including bacteria, parasites, fungi, and other contaminants, and adversely affect communications in the classroom and student performance. There is statistically significant evidence to suggest that counties with mask requirements, there is no statistics that have shown that they have fared any better than those without mask requirements. So people with masks and people without masks, there is no statistics that say that masks work or that children have fared better. On April 29, 2021, Florida Surgeon General Dr. Scott issued a public health advisory stating that continuing COVID-19 restrictions on individuals, including long-term use of face coverings, poses a risk of adverse and unintended consequences. Florida law even states that all parents have the right to make health care decisions for their children. Section 1003.22 in Florida statutes mandates the Florida Department of Health to adopt rules in consultation with the Florida Department of Education governing the control of preventable communicable diseases, including procedures for exempting children from immunization requirements. Pursuant to Section 1008.32 Florida statutes of the State Board of Education determines that a district school board is unwilling or unable to comply with the law, the state board shall have the authority to, among other things, withhold the transfer of state funds, discretionary grant funds, discretionary lottery funds, etc. Funding for schools defiant of Governor DeSantis, funding should stop. Given the historical data on COVID-19 and the ongoing debate over whether masks are more harmful than beneficial to children and to school environments in general, we should protect the freedoms and statutory rights of students and parents by resting with the parents' decision whether the children should wear masks in school. We should equally uniformly protect the freedoms and rights of students and parents across the state. I side with Governor DeSantis. He stated, by virtue of the authority vested in me by Article 4, Section 1 of the Florida Constitution, in his Executive Order 21.175, I hereby direct
Your time is up. Your time is up. Your time is up. Your time is up. Thank you. Joseph Hayes.
Hello, this is Joseph. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Joseph Hayes, a resident of Hillsborough County, and thank you for your time today. And I will be addressing the mask mandate and in-person attendance with public county meetings. So I, along with the Constitution, value liberty over government overreach in the name of state emergency and safety. If our founding fathers were more worried about their safety than the liberty of themselves and future generations, we might still be a British colony today. Thomas Paine said the duty of a true patriot is to protect his country from its government. I'm here to say no to mask mandate. Members of the board, I say listen to your governor and the courts and do not mandate masks. This mask mandate is contrary to the governor's order. I've often seen the question asked, is it so hard just to wear a mask? No, wearing a mask would not be hard, but it is the giving up of personal liberties that I and the residents of Hillsborough County simply cannot do. Mandating masks is the county parks, in the county parks and buildings is not right. I'm a tax-paying citizen of Hillsborough County, and I should have just as much access and right to these county buildings and public parks as anyone else without having to wear a mask. The county commission needs to keep public meetings open to in-person attendance at the meetings. According to the Florida Constitution, Article 1, Section 24B, it is unconstitutional to deny in-person access to public meetings of county commissioners. I'd like to thank you for your time today, but I would say follow the governor's order. Any mask mandate in this county is unconstitutional, and that's what I have to say today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, we have no others listed for public comment. And we'll move to our consent agenda. And I know that Commissioner Smith, you removed an item and you'd like to speak to that item?
Yes, thank you. This was item A6 to set the public hearing for the Lennar Homes construction of portions of the extension of essentially Paseo El Mar. I wanted to pull this just to have staff provide clarification on a clause in the agreement. On page 7, clause E is about impact fee offsets. Impact fee offsets are credits that the county used to give out, I'm not sure if we're still giving them out, that could then be used by the developer or even sold to other developers to get out of paying impact fees in some way, on some project, maybe even later on some other project. And it's my understanding that we're not giving any more impact fee offsets for new projects in that old way. I hope not, because we ended up buying a lot of them back with real money, even though the credits are not real money, so those deals don't get any roads built or improved. But anyway, on page 7 of this contract, Clause E is titled Impact Fee Offsets, and it states, the county shall award impact fee offsets to the developer for the developer improvements consistent with the procedures set forth in the Hillsborough County Consolidated Impact Fee Assessment Program Ordinance as amended. That's all it says, shall award impact fee offsets in, consistent with our rules. So when I saw this clause, I was concerned that the developer would be getting impact fee offsets or credits for the improvements made to Paseo El Mar on top of the reimbursements paid for the project by the county. We're paying them over $2 million to build this section of the road. It's a good deal. They can build it cheaper than we can build it. No problem with that. But I just want to make sure that we're not also giving them impact fee credits or offsets that would be used against impact fees that we should collect and use to pay for road improvements elsewhere. So I believe from my conversations with staff that this particular project is not eligible for impact fee offsets, but I would like to have staff confirm this and clarify what is going on with the impact fee offsets mentioned in this agreement before we move it forward.
Thank you. So with that, if we want to entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Commissioner.
Staff is on the phone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think that Commissioner Smith was looking for an answer to her question, and I know there's many people on standby to answer. I can simply say that the offsets do not apply to the portion of the road that's at the county's request to build pursuant to the statute. But perhaps Nancy Takamori or John Lyons can further elaborate on the situation with the impact fee offsets.
Good morning, Christine. This is Nancy Takamori with the County Attorney's Office. I can confirm that the developer will not receive impact fee offsets for the improvements that the county is paying them to construct under the agreement. There are also improvements that the developer is constructing at its own expense and for which the county is not reimbursing them, and the developer may be eligible for impact fee offsets if they comply with the Consolidated Impact Fee Ordinance for those improvements, because those improvements were required prior to January 1st, 2017, so prior to the effective date of the Mobility Fee Ordinance.
Commissioner Smith.
So even though this new contract has this clause saying that the county shall award impact fee offsets to the developer for in this contract, what I'm hearing on the record is that we won't?
Yeah, I think, Nancy, let me just try to take a stab at explaining this. Really, that clause is only saying that the contract will comply with existing law and existing ordinances. And so Nancy has clarified, and I've clarified, that they are not entitled to offsets for this particular project that they're doing on behalf of the county. But to the extent that they have some entitlement because of their prior actions prior to the mobility ordinance, that may, if they follow everything and dot every I and cross every T, that may be a possibility. So did I state that accurately, Nancy, or do we need to clarify that anymore?
Yes, you did state it accurately, Christine, and I would just add that section of the agreement refers only to the developer improvements, which are defined in the agreement as the improvements that the developer is constructing and paying for at its own expense.
Okay. Then it's still a little confusing to me, but I'm going to be okay with moving it forward to set the public hearing, but I really wanted to make sure that this clarification from our attorneys was put on the record so that later on some other attorneys couldn't come up and argue otherwise, and also to bring the point to the attention of the board in case anyone else wants to look into it further before the hearing. But I'm okay with setting the public hearing as it is on the consent agenda today.
I'll move for approval of the consent agenda, including item A6 then.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner White and seconded by Commissioner Overman to move the consent agenda. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Ms. Wise, we're at the regular agenda now.
Yes, ma'am. We are at the 10 o'clock, the first public hearing, item D1. This is to conduct a public hearing and approve the proposed ordinance relating to establishments that offer hookah in unincorporated Hillsborough County. Commissioner Cohen had asked us to bring this before you, and we have the Sheriff's Office as well as Fire Chief Dennis Jones available too. Paul Johnston from the County Attorney's Office will lead us through the public hearing.
Good morning, Commissioners. Paul Johnston, County Attorney's Office. This board directed staff to work with the Sheriff's Office to draft an ordinance regulating establishments that offer hookah. Staff has drafted the proposed ordinance, and at your direction scheduled this public hearing to consider its enactment. Basically, this ordinance requires establishments that offer hookah to close between the hours of 3 a.m. and 8 a.m., prohibits these establishments from selling or allowing the consumption of alcoholic beverages on their premises, prohibits nudity on the premises, prohibits persons under the age of 18. This public hearing has properly been advertised, and the proposed ordinance has been filed with the clerk for public review. Staff recommends that the enactment of this ordinance is presented, and as stated previously, I believe there are representatives from the Sheriff's Office that would like to make a presentation.
This is a public hearing, and with that, we'll go to the first person on to speak, Chip Purcell.
Thank you, County Commission. I am Chip Purcell. I'm privileged to represent the people of the West Broad Baptist Church who are strongly supporting the county attorney and the Sheriff's Office in urging the Commission to pass what are very reasonable restrictions on these hookah lounges. Being one who's not a hookah participant, I have learned quite a lot that I think a lot of people who may not be particularly aware of what goes on would know, and that would be helpful, I believe, to the Commission. We own property that is nearby the church owns property near a hookah lounge, which was also near a second hookah lounge. And what is in fact happening at these hookah lounges and after hours is a massive gathering. People park on our property, leaving trash, needles, all kinds of stuff after hours, alcohol bottles. Our surveillance cameras have shown prostitution, violence. Our church building has been hit by bullets after hours. And so what I'm presenting to the Commission is a picture of these after hours hookah lounges that is not what one might reasonably think when you're provided an opportunity to smoke tobacco in a location after hours. That is what's happening at these places. We feel that this is a very reasonable restriction on the lounges. It gives the Sheriff's Office and the county authority to make very reasonable inquiries and reasonable protections for the people in the neighborhood. And for those reasons, we are strongly urging the Commission to support the passage of this amendment. Thank you for your time and your courtesy.
Thank you. Next is Roger Bunner. Not here. Thank you. Ellen Snelling.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ellen Snelling. I'm the Board Chair of the Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance, and I'm coming here this morning to show my support for this, for D1. Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance is a 501c3 whose mission is to prevent and reduce youth substance abuse and adult substance use disorders in Hillsborough County. We've served the children and families of Hillsborough for over 30 years. I was shocked to read about the complaints of large crowds in the early morning hours, noise, litter, fights, violence, shootings, stabbings, intoxication, illegal drug use, and drug sales. I didn't even know hookah lounges were open after 3 a.m. Not only are they open, but now I'm finding they're sources of crime. I'm especially concerned about any illegal drug activity at these businesses. Sadly, in Hillsborough County, 538 people died from drug overdoses in 2020. That's more than 10 people every week who died of an overdose. According to the medical examiner's office, these numbers are not going down in 2021. We must do everything in our power to prevent overdoses and save lives. Hillsborough County has been #1 in the state in DUI crashes, injuries, fatalities. Patrons who drink or use illegal drugs at these businesses may get into their vehicle and drive impaired, putting innocent people at risk. You've heard the old saying, nothing good happens after midnight. You can bet nothing good happens after 3 a.m. Based on neighborhood complaints and what I just heard from the pastor at the Baptist church and the sheriff's office reports, these establishments have been a source of crime, violent acts, and disturbances early in the morning, endangering the community and burdening our law enforcement officers. We support limiting the hours of operation and the other requirements listed in the ordinance, including not allowing anyone under 18 to enter unless accompanied by a parent, and no employee shall allow a person under 21 to use tobacco products on premises, which is in accordance with federal and state law. Please continue protecting the health and safety and welfare of the children, of the families and children and citizens of Hillsborough County, and vote yes on item D1. And I wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to come here in person and talk to you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dottie Groover Skipper. I have her signed as virtual.
Dottie, can you hear us? Please unmute your phone.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Dottie Groover Skipper, and I serve on the Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance Board of Directors along with Ellen Snelling. And I also serve our great state as a board member of the Florida Drug Policy Advisory Council appointed by our governor. Both of these boards have a mission to prevent and reduce youth and adult substance use disorders. I'm here to support the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and ask you to vote yes on item D1, an ordinance that prohibits establishments that offer hookah from operating after 3 a.m. It is rather alarming to hear of all the complaints of the large crowds in the early morning hours, as you heard from the representative of the church, the noise, the fights, the shootings, the intoxication, illegal drug use, drug sales, and prostitution occurring in or around the hookah establishments in the late night or early morning hours. Of course, all this is very concerning, and we must better safeguard our community. The drug statistics in our county alone is disturbing. You heard Ellen Snelling say that in Hillsborough County, over 500 individuals have died from drug overdoses in 2020.
And she also stated that Hillsborough County has been #1 in the state in DUI crashes, injuries, and fatalities. So based on these many complaints and the Sheriff's Office report, these establishments have been a source of crime, violent acts, and disturbances in the early morning hours, endangering our community and also placing greater burden on law enforcement. So, Commissioners, I please ask you to support limiting the hours of operation and other requirements listed in the ordinance, including not allowing anyone under the age of 18 to enter unless accompanied by a parent, and that no employee shall allow a person under the age of 21 to use tobacco products on the premises. Thank you so much for this consideration to better protect the health, safety, and welfare of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll move to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy Donna Luzinski.
Good morning. On behalf of Sheriff Cronister, I'd like to thank the commissioners for your time this morning. As Chief Deputy of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, it's my job to address the safety concerns of our citizens and to consistently find better ways to protect and serve our community. Our county, as across the state and the nation, has seen an increase in violent crime, particularly crimes involving firearms, and we're attempting to address this through a number of issues. More specifically, I come to you today to discuss a matter that the Sheriff's Office has been working to address since 2019, and that is hookah lounges within our county and the late hours they are allowed to operate with little to no oversight. Since March of 2019, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and the Tampa Police Department have responded to 17 violent incidents where firearms at hookah lounges within our county, ranging from shots fired at buildings, vehicles, and innocent patrons following arguments, to include murder, and most recently, a shooting where an individual was shot and paralyzed. These calls do not include what we would consider nuisance calls, which can include disturbances, thefts, burglaries, fights, and assaults, to name a few. For example, the last hour hookah lounge on Dale Neighborhood resulted in 76 of these calls from August of 2020 till our current date. And I ask you to keep in mind that with COVID in 2020, these locations were not open for a significant period of time. This year alone, 2021, accounts for 10 of those 17 incidents, and based on the volume of calls for service, we see the escalation and believe that number could continue to rise as more people continue to discover these locations and attend. Each of these acts of violence have common factors, one of them being the time frame in which they occurred. Our records indicate that we've responded to these calls between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. This is a time frame when most nightclubs and bars have closed, and we have individuals who have already been out drinking are looking to continue their partying rather than returning home. These hookah lounges have taken the place of former bottle clubs, which the Commission previously allowed to sunset due to the various concerns with their operations. It not only creates a dangerous environment for criminal activity, but it also affects the quality of life for residents and other businesses surrounding hookah lounges. As you heard, the Sheriff's Office received a complaint from a local pastor at West Broad Street Baptist Church, expressing his concerns about the increase in crime on his property and around it as a result of the hookah lounge. And as you heard, they were here in support earlier. This house of worship was struck with 7 bullets in September of 2020 following a shooting outside a nearby lounge. In addition to damaged property, the church has seen issues with prostitution, drug use, illegal parking, and even individuals urinating on their property.
Thank you, Deputy Luzinski. We appreciate it.
Madam Chair, I'm going to make a motion that we allow Chief Deputy Luzinski to finish her comments.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to allow, can it just be the board's discretion or the chair's discretion? I'll continue to let her finish.
Okay, thank you. They've also observed an increase in littering to include empty liquor bottles, drug paraphernalia, and used condom, which we don't want any of our constituents waking up to. We've increased patrols in these areas for the safety and protection of the residents and businesses, and although we'd like to be there constantly, it's not practical. At times we have to be reactive. And unfortunately, a number of these witnesses and victims don't want to cooperate with law enforcement, and at times they resort to resolving these issues on their own terms, resulting in more violence. We've also assigned undercover personnel to enter the businesses and determine if any criminal activity is occurring. Our detectives have observed illegal alcohol sales, narcotics transactions, and possession of firearms by patrons and staff, which is a danger to everyone. We've also observed dancers in various stages of undress performing for patrons while the staff collects their tips. And unfortunately, this sets up an environment for potential human trafficking. We've also worked with our partners at Code Enforcement and the Fire Department to address these issues. Chief Jones of the Hillsborough County Fire Rescue and Joe Gross, the Director of Code Enforcement, are also here in support. However, their investigations can be lengthy and simply may result in a magistrate imposing monetary sanctions while the criminal activity continues. And quite frankly, a fine of several $100s doesn't do anything for the thousands they're making a night in these establishments. And if they're successful in closing these locations, there's nothing that prevents them from reopening at another location, which then will require those agencies to start again. And although arrests can be made for some of these violations, it's clear from a law enforcement perspective that the best way to address these ongoing, increasing problems with hookah lounges is to set more rules in place so that lounge owners are held to a higher standard and can work with law enforcement to prevent crime in and around their establishments. We've worked closely with Commissioner Cohen, the county attorney, as well as our staff to ensure this ordinance addresses a narrow and specific portion of our community. We've also contacted community members to discuss the ordinance. Yahya Chandra, a prominent member of the Muslim community and who attends the Islamic Society of Tampa Bay, and Shalish Patel, president of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office Indian Advisory Council, are both supportive of this ordinance and are concerned with the crimes in those locations. In conclusion, I come to you today respectfully requesting the Board of County Commissioners enact an ordinance requiring the 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. closure for county hookah lounges. Having little oversight of businesses that operate in the early morning hours when a majority of crimes occur, combined with the clientele of potentially armed and intoxicated individuals, is a dangerous combination that, as we see, can have fatal consequences. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Deputy Lisinski, for that really important and compelling testimony. And with that, we'll close the public hearing, and I'll move first to Commissioner White. You're recognized.
Madam Chair, I see where Commissioner Cohen has jumped into the queue, and he championed this item. I'd like to see if we can allow him to go first, and then I'll jump into the queue behind him.
Of course. Commissioner Cohen.
I appreciate that, Commissioner White. I really don't have much to add to, I think, Chief Lisinski's excellent presentation. I want to reiterate, though, to the board that we worked very hard, and I know some of you did as well in meeting with the Sheriff's Office, to make this ordinance as narrowly tailored as possible. But the fact of the matter is, just giving the hours of operation and mandating that these establishments close at 3 a.m. will give the Sheriff's Office a much greater amount of enforcement power than they have now when things can run for 24 hours. The speaker, Ms. Snelling, who said nothing good happens after 3 a.m., it might have caused a few giggles, but the truth is it's not funny. It is the time of the night when the best possible thing is to close and to have people go home. I spent 8 years as the city council representative in the area of the Howard Avenue Entertainment District. And I can tell you that 3 a.m. really was the magic hour, because at that point, everything closed and everyone had to go home. And a lot of the problems that we had simply could be shut down because of the closing time itself. The mandate of 18-year-olds, the reiteration of the alcohol laws all of this makes sense and really is just a very limited way of giving the sheriff's office the opportunity to solve a real problem that has real consequences for a lot of our constituents. And this started for me right after I got elected, and I heard from Pastor Brunner and others who are in the proximity to certain bad actors. Certainly not all hookah lounges are responsible for this, and in no way do we want to paint everybody with a broad brush. But in the establishments where there is nefarious activity, closing at 3 a.m. and giving the sheriff's office the opportunity to enforce the law is going to go a long way toward ensuring the public safety. So with that, I would like to make a motion to pass this ordinance, and I look forward to hearing from other commissioners.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Cohen, seconded by Commissioner White. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Cohen, I want to thank you for your leadership on this issue and for championing this issue. I'm sure this is an ordinance that's going to pass today. It is unacceptable that communities have to deal with the issues described by Mr. Purcell. So I'd like to ask Christine Beck, if this passes today, when will the ordinance go into effect?
Commissioner, the ordinance will be effective upon filing with the Secretary of State, which is pretty instantaneous these days, so very quickly.
Very good. So I'll just say to Ms. Wise, once this has been duly filed and the ordinance becomes effective, I would ask that you work with the Sheriff's Office to see if they're able to conduct a sweep immediately to assure that these establishments are compliant with the new ordinance.
Did you want to respond, Ms. Wise?
Yes, we will.
And Commissioner Hagan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. I too want to thank Commissioner Cohen for his leadership on this issue. Years ago, I was the commissioner responsible for preventing future bottle clubs from opening in Hillsborough County. As Chief Lizinski stated, back then they were the locations where these problems occurred, and now it appears that they're taking place at these hookah lounges. So again, as the one who championed preventing bottle clubs from proliferating, I want to just thank Commissioner Cohen for his leadership on this.
Okay, and at this time, seeing no other comments, it's, if I understand this ordinance correctly, it really just makes the hookah lounges follow the same directives, same laws as rules as any bar or alcohol establishment.
Yes, you're correct, Commissioner.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Seeing no other comments and no other discussion, will please record your vote. We have a motion, I'm sorry, by Commissioner Cohen, seconded by Commissioner White.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. Ms. Wise.
Thank you. The next public hearing is to consider enacting a by supermajority vote, an ordinance extending the 1 cent local option fuel tax. You may have heard it as pennies for potholes. It is the 9 cent fuel tax. Also in your backup are letters from all 3 cities in support of this item. Sam Hamilton will take us through this item with the County Attorney's Office.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sam Hamilton, County Attorney's Office. As Ms. Weiss just said, this is a public hearing on a proposed ordinance which would extend the current levy of the 9 cent fuel tax through December 31st of 2031. The ordinance basically provides the same as the current levy, also speaks to distributions and uses, all consistent with the current levy. Can certainly answer any questions. The only other points I would make would be that the public hearing was noticed in accordance with law. As Ms. Weiss said, if you do consider enactment, it does require, state law requires a supermajority vote, and it would now be appropriate to take any public comment. And again, certainly can answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, but I see no one signed up for the public hearing, so there's no one to speak. Is that correct? Oh. So we have no one there. And so we'll close the public hearing and move to board discussion.
Move approval.
We have a motion by Commissioner Overman, seconded by Commissioner Smith. And seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wise.
Thank you. The next item is a public hearing. This is the second of two required public hearings regarding an agreement with the Hillsborough County School District for school concurrency proportionate share mitigation development agreement. Adam Gormley will take us through this item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Adam Gormley with Development Services. Item D3 is a public hearing to consider adoption of a school concurrency proportionate share mitigation agreement amongst the county, the School Board of Hillsborough County, and Greenpoint Communities, LLC. The purpose of this agreement is to satisfy school concurrency for the Rodine Pit subdivision project. This project consists of 271 single-family detached dwelling units, and the agreement calls for a payment of $669,301 to construct 24 middle school student stations to accommodate the impacts of this project. The seats will be constructed at the PK through 8 UU school site within the Waterset development. This is a public hearing. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is a public hearing. We have Rebecca Kurt signed up.
Thank you, Commissioners. Rebecca Kurt, 400 North Campus Street. I'm here representing the developer, and I'm available if there are any questions.
Thank you. Seeing no one else signed up to speak, we'll close the public hearing and move to any board discussion or motion.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner Myers. And seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Wise?
Thank you. The next public hearing is to establish separate uniform rates for various street lighting classifications for the tax year 2021. Josh Bellotti will take us through item D4.
Good morning, Commissioners. Josh Bellotti, Engineering and Operations Department. This is a public hearing to establish separate uniform rates for the various street lighting classifications and adopt the non-ad valorem tax assessment for residential street lighting for the 2021 tax year. The rate schedule is provided in the agenda backup, and there are no proposed changes to the current street lighting rates. All requirements of the Hillsborough County Consolidated Street Lighting Special Purpose District have been met. Written notice of this public hearing was sent via mail and was duly advertised in the Tampa Bay Times in accordance with statutes. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. This is a public hearing.
Thank you. And seeing no one signed up for this public hearing, we'll close the public hearing and move to board discussion or motion.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Myers. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. Moving right along, Ms. Wise.
Yes, the final public hearing is item D5. This is a public hearing to consider affirming the recommendation of the hearing officer and the Emergency Medical Planning Council, and Gene Early will take us through this item.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Gene Early, Department Director, Healthcare Services, Hillsborough County. Under Florida statute, any entity wishing to operate an ambulance service must obtain a certificate of public convenience and necessity from each county in which the ambulance service will operate. And here in Hillsborough County, the Board of County Commissioners long ago established a process for issuing such certificates of public convenience and necessity through a hearing officer and the Emergency Medical Planning Council. This process is codified in the Hillsborough County Municipal Code. Esteems of Florida LLC, Hughes Holdings LLC, has made an application for a new certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate one basic life support ambulance in Hillsborough County. Following the established process, the application was referred to a hearing officer to conduct a public hearing and consider the merits of the application in promoting public convenience and necessity. The hearing officer's report and recommendation was then reviewed and considered by the Emergency Medical Planning Council, and the EMPC has provided its own recommendation. Both the hearing officer and the Emergency Medical Planning Committee recommendations have been provided to you. The final step in the application process is for the board to hold its own public hearing and to then consider the application. Pursuant to County Municipal Code, the board shall take final action affirming, reversing, or modifying the recommendations. The board shall consider only facts presented at the hearing officer public hearing. If the board determines that new facts have been offered which were not available or were not produced at the time of the hearing officer's public hearing, the board may remand the report and recommendations to the EMPC or the hearing officer. The board may conduct such further hearings and make such additional investigations as it deems necessary before taking final action. If the board determines that the public convenience and necessity will not be promoted by approval of the application, then the application shall not be approved. If the board finds that the public convenience and necessity will be promoted by the approval of the application, then the application shall be approved, subject to any limitations or restrictions reasonably required by the board. Recommendation of the hearing officer and the Emergency Medical Planning Council is that the Esteems of Florida LLC, Hughes Holding LLC, not be granted a certificate of public convenience and necessity. This is a public hearing, and I believe only one individual has signed up to speak, Mr. Jordan Miller. Thank you.
And yes, we have, this is a public hearing, and the only speaker we have, Mr. Miller, Jordan Miller.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, my name is Jordan Miller, and I represent American Medical Response, which is an existing COPCN holder in Hillsborough County for the BLS, that's Basic Life Support Service category. That's up for application by Esteems. American Medical Response, pursuant to the county code provisions that were just cited, intervened in the hearing officer hearing as an existing provider, and that hearing was held on April 27th. As was just laid out to you, the hearing officer, Mr. Marino, recommended denial of the application by Esteems, and American Medical Response is in agreement. I believe the hearing officer's report speaks for itself, but in the report, Mr. Marino found that the applicant was unable to meet its burden to demonstrate public convenience and necessity. There's several factors laid out in the code and cited by the hearing officer as to why the applicant was unable to prove public convenience and necessity, which is its burden to do. In essence, there was no evidence presented at the hearing of an unmet need for BLS service in Hillsborough County. There was no evidence of unfulfilled trips by the existing providers, of which AMR is one. The hearing officer also held that the applicant could not demonstrate adequate financial or performance track record. Also, the hearing officer held that there was an inadequate management plan presented by the applicant, as only one employee was proposed to be not only handling the finances, the calls coming in, the actual driving of the one truck. So the hearing officer found that that criteria was not met, and there was no support from any of the municipal providers as well. So in short, AMR would urge the commission to go ahead and approve the recommendation of the hearing officer in the EMPC, which also agreed that the application should be denied by unanimous vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have no other public signed up, so at this time, we'll close the public hearing and move to board discussion. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move to affirm the recommendation of the hearing officer and the EMPC as stated in the staff recommendation for item D5.
We have a motion by Commissioner White, seconded by Commissioner Cohen. And seeing no further discussion at this time, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Ms. Wise.
Thank you. We can now move on to our 10:15 time certain, which is item E1. This is a special appearance by Freddy Barton with Safe and Sound Hillsborough, who's the executive director, to present the 2021 annual report.
Good morning, Commissioners. I want to first again, Freddy Barton with Safe and Sound Hillsborough, bring you greetings from our Leadership Council and our Chair and Vice Chair, our Chair, Public Defender Julianne Holt, and Vice Chair, Temple Terrace Police Chief Ken Albano. I want to thank you for this opportunity to once again come before you, as we've done in years past, to give you an update as to our activities to help prevent community violence and bring the community together, as well as to highlight some current efforts and some things that are coming in the future. In 2020, as we all know, our organization, just like many other organizations, felt the strain of COVID-19. And COVID-19 presented several challenges, including the limitation of services and some limitations on our ability to interact with residents to provide community solutions. Yet, as you'll see through the annual report, we've still been able to help move the needle through our programs, services, and initiatives that we've launched in years past and continuing to move forward as we go into the future. We want to thank the Board of County Commissioners and the leadership team of Hillsborough County for always being supportive of our efforts by providing both financial and in-kind resources. As you already have the annual report in your packet, but we will go through a summarized version for the sake of time and brevity, as well. And as we do that, we'll give you some data and some outcomes as we go forward. Again, Safe and Sound Hillsborough is comprised of all of our major public agencies, from the Board of County Commissioners, all three cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, and Plant City. We have the Sheriff's Office, the School District, the Administrative Office of the Courts, and many other community providers that come together to answer one question, and that is, what can we do as a community to prevent violence? So we're thankful for the Board of County Commissioners in supporting us, specifically Commissioner Myers, who's come on as our leadership representative from the Board of County Commissioners. We focus on several key principles, and we've talked about this in years past. Our core values, number one, is violence is preventable. As you recall earlier, the Sheriff's Office brought up some very valid points, that we still have a long way to go. We still see that there's some incidents of gun violence, there's community violence, not just centered around several issues that you've talked about earlier, but because we know that we have to still put in critical services to address those who are most at risk. You'll hear me say all the time that we have to start as early as possible to work with our youth to know that there's a positive pathway for their future. 2020 also thrust us into the world of social justice, where different words became commonplace as we saw the strain that the community felt with its relationship with law enforcement. Safe and Sound Hillsborough has worked to address that through our community forums, as we'll go into in just a little bit. Our four key strategic plan goals: improving the health and well-being of families, creating cultivated communities, improving neighborhood conditions, and maximizing impact, all focused on working together, knowing that we can't do this alone. With a small staff of 4, and as you see in your current report, a skeletal budget, we've still been able to move the needle only by working through our leadership council agencies and, most importantly, residents at the community level to keep our programs and services valid and relevant. So how have we been able to do that? When we look at improving the health and well-being of families, we knew that we had to keep certain things at the forefront. We had to address mental health and physical health. We did that by providing mental health first aid trainings for free to not just community residents, but organizations throughout Hillsborough County. With the advent of COVID-19, we had to shift and we moved that to virtual trainings as well. So now we're able to offer that for in-person as well as virtual sessions. We expanded out our physical wellness programs through yoga in the park and utilizing our park facilities to make sure that we keep residents active while still abiding by COVID-19 protocols. And we knew that we had to continue to work with the community to identify community needs. We've done that by hosting a number of community forums, and from those forums, we've been able to implement programs that were requested by the community. As you know, we focus on 4 key areas: East Tampa, University area, Plant City, and South County. But through our partnerships with multiple community partners, we've been able to expand out into different service areas. Some of the outcomes that we've been able to see in the 2020-2021 year, and as we move forward, we've been able to see a 28% increase in requests for mental health first aid trainings. We've seen a 31% increase in referrals and coordination of services, both substance abuse as well as mental wellness. And we've doubled our increase in resident community participation. People from our communities that we serve are now coming out to participate, knowing that their voices are being heard. When we look at how do we cultivate communities and improve neighborhood conditions, we knew that we had to address place, space, and overall wellness of our most important asset, which are our youth. We saw in 2020, especially with the incident in Minneapolis, that we had a strain. Several words became commonplace terms: social justice, equity, rehabilitation, reform. We heard these words daily as we saw the things that were happening all throughout our nation and then locally here. We started at Safe and Sound to have community discussions on how do we address race, equity, and then the improvement of quality for all residents, and how do we improve community and resident participation with law enforcement. We started a series of discussions called Moving Us Forward, where we brought together law enforcement and members of the community to talk about what can be done from a strategic perspective to improve community and law enforcement relations. In the world of equity, we knew that we had to address gaps in multiple systems, primarily our educational system. We knew that in the high school realm, we had several large groups of students who were severely behind in academic credits. So we started academic credit recovery programs at both of our recreational facilities, where we made sure that students were moving the needle and catching up so that they could graduate on time, hopefully serving as a great equalizer to improve the quality of life for themselves as well as their family. We started working younger, and in the middle school realm, we created youth leadership programs that were focused on improving academics, behavior, and other outcomes. We did this by working with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their social justice campaign. From there, we've been able to see a 95% leadership program completion rate, and we've had 37% increase in academic credit attainment for youth who would normally be lost in the shuffle in our education system. We've also been able to increase outside funding to support our initiatives, one of which I'll announce in a very few minutes. We've been able to take off some of the strain in the community by continuing to provide scholarships to those students who are moving the needle in their communities as well as schools. When we look at maximizing impact, we know that we can't do this alone. It's one of our tag phrases that we say every day, that Safe and Sound Hillsborough, the sheriff's office, the school district, no, not one of us can do this work alone and truly be successful. So we've partnered with community organizations, we've partnered with youth groups, we've partnered with mentoring groups, we've partnered with our sororities, our fraternities, our fraternal organizations to make sure that we work to keep our youth active, to keep them safe, and keep them on the right path. Whether it's through our monthly Boys and Girls Night Out, where they come together and are paired up with mentoring groups to help them through academics and any other support services, whether it's working in a collaborative impact to address reducing online predators and their contacts with youth, and thereby reducing human trafficking, or looking at how do we address bullying through mentorship opportunities, we've been able to see several things happen. We've been able to see an overall 32% decrease in juvenile arrests in our target areas. This is between the years of 2017 and 2020. Now, I would love to say that we are solely responsible for that decrease, but we can't because we know it's a collaborative effort. But we know that since we've been actively involved in our communities, we've seen a decrease. We also know that we've nearly doubled the number of all of our community partnerships, knowing that we can't think that we can do this all alone. We've been able to launch several programs. We've been able to put on several initiatives and see some great outcomes, all while still serving as good fiscal stewards of the funding that we receive, not just through the county, but through all of our interlocal partners, and also knowing that we have to raise money outside to look at sustainability. In the last year, we were able to raise nearly 1/3 of our operational budget. We're already on track coming into the new fiscal year to increase that number. Because of our work in social justice and equity, we've recently received an award from the NFL. Since we have the champions of the world right here in our own city, in our backyard, as we get ready to start off the NFL season, the NFL, in partnership with Cisco, has awarded Safe and Sound over $100,000 to continue our social justice programming at our reporting center and through our mentoring initiative through the Public Defender's Office. We look forward to continuing on with our programming and support. As you know, every year we have been able to have successful audits with no findings because we take the funding and investments very seriously, and we make sure that that funding goes directly to our programs and services. Because we know that if we want to continue, we have to continue to show an impact. So what does now look like? This is our 2020 report. We're in 2021 and moving towards 2022. We're continuing to move forward with juvenile justice initiatives. We've partnered with the Department of Juvenile Justice and we received grant funding to support some programming that works on reducing recidivism and juvenile arrest. And for those youth who do get arrested and come through the system, working to get them out of that system as soon as possible. Because as many of you know, the longer that a juvenile is in the system, the more likely they are, if they make one mistake, to continue down a path of declination. And we don't want to see that here at Safe and Sound Hillsborough. As we continue forward, we're expanding our mentorship opportunities, and we're attacking reading proficiency in our early childhood education services, and then financial literacy so that we can change the trajectory of the families that are served through our programs. And we're moving beyond our 4 target areas and moving into several other key areas, such as town and country, such as Temple Terrace, knowing that now that the community is fully behind our efforts, we can then start expanding those services. Again, as you heard the sheriff's office say earlier, we still know that we have a long way to go. We still see youth violence, we still see youth gun violence, and we're attacking that by making sure that we put programs and services to address those who have made those mistakes. As you already know, the Board of County Commissioners has supported the expansion of a reporting center in East Tampa, in the East Hillsborough area, that serves as a mechanism to move and change the trajectory of those individual males who make mistakes. And while they're in supervised release, during that 21-day period, we are providing in-depth services and intervention services for them. Case management, life skills training, pairing up with mentorship, making sure that they're getting back in school or on track with school through virtual learning, all with 2 major outcomes: that they don't reoffend while they're on supervised release, and that they don't miss any of their court dates. Staggering statistic, this population of youth reoffend while on supervised release as few as 9 days by when placed on supervised release. We've been able to see 88% of our youth successfully complete supervised release with no new charges. We also are seeing that we have less than 9% of our youth to miss their court dates. We're able to work with them, but 21 days isn't enough. So the county supported our efforts to expand our services up to 90 days through the Public Defender's Juvenile Holistic Advocacy Program, where when youth come through our reporting center, after 21 days, they will then be appointed an attorney ad litem that will work with them to help navigate through their case. We also pair them up with an individual mentor to find out what support services are needed. We also have the anticipated outcomes, again, no failures to appear, less than a 25% rate of technical violations, less than 25% recidivism rate. Through both the reporting center and the Juvenile Holistic Advocacy Program, since February of 2021, we've seen 54 youth to come through, and again, with an 88% success rate as it relates to our recidivism. And as we look at mentorship programs, we've expanded out to financial literacy-based programs, literacy initiatives, and then expanding our community partnerships so that we can move beyond our service areas. As I get ready to close, and we talk about safe and sound and where we're going, I want to just close with what we call the power of one, where if we can affect one individual, that one individual can make a difference in the lives of others. 3 years ago, we had a youth that was referred to us by both our state attorney and our public defender as a potentially deep end statistic. A young man who made several mistakes while in middle school and without any other services would literally go into the adult criminal justice system and therefore be a burden on society. Safe and Sound Hillsborough was asked, and myself in particular, to work with this young man to find out what was needed in order to make his pathway change. And for the last 3 years, 3.5 years, we've worked with this young man, and we've seen him mature and grow. And ahead of his peers, this young man graduated over the last summer with his high school diploma. That young man went from statistic to success, and he will move on to the next level of success by moving into his career path of working with youth. And he will begin a position, a part-time position with the very organization that worked to see him through. And he'll serve as a peer mentor in our reporting center and our holistic advocacy program. The power of one, where one individual can then serve as a model of change for others, thereby helping us reduce and prevent community violence and improve the overall quality of our community. Once again, I want to thank the Board of County Commissioners in Hillsborough County for being a programming and financial partner in our efforts. Thank you for allowing me to once again come before you to present our report and updates, as well as explain some things that are coming into the new year. And at this point, I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Myers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Freddy, for the thorough report, your annual report. I'd just like to say to you, you continue to find ways to save our youth through your various programs. And with the reporting center, it's the different maker for our young boys. I can remember one of my sorority sisters saying many years ago, Congresswoman Frederica Wilson, she established a program down in Broward County for young boys so that when the girls grew up and mature, one day they would get married. All of the young boys would not be in prison or coming through the system. And you continue to give of yourself to help the young people in our community. And I want to applaud you and thank you so much, Freddy, because the young people in Hillsborough County, they know your name. They have heard your name. You have worked well with so many organizations to push the young people, to let them know they don't have to get into trouble. We have services out there to help them. You just have been a pillar for this community, and I just personally want to say thank you for all that you do. Your service is priceless to Hillsborough County government.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. And seeing no other comments at this time, Ms. Wise.
Thank you. The next item is 11 o'clock. We'll go with that. 11 o'clock item.
Wow.
How about that? Well done.
It was right on the button there.
Perfect. Is item G1. This is to receive our report on the local pandemic, data recovery programs, and strategic investments related to COVID-19. We have several here today to give you a presentation, and you have some of the backup in your materials. First, we'll have Tim Dudley, Division Director with Emergency Management. He's going to give an update about what activities we have ongoing, especially our new testing activities. We have representatives from the Department of Health, Dr. Holt and Michael Weiss. We're going to go through some statistics for you that are in your backup. And we have Drs. Chan and Dr. Bornstad with Advent Health, who are going to speak to us about monoclonal antibodies. And then Audrey Ziegler at the very end will give a brief update on the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. So pretty full agenda item, starting with Tim Dudley.
Mr. Dudley?
Thank you, Administrator. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Tim Dudley, Office of Emergency Management Division Director. I'll be providing an update on current emergency operations. Hillsborough County testing update. The wait for appointments at local pharmacies remain longer than expected, 3 to 5 days. So the county continues to offer public COVID-19 testing locations at Palm River Recreational Center and the Code Enforcement Complex at East 139th Avenue. The City of Tampa has opened 2 public testing sites at Al Lopez Park and Al Barnes Park as well. Between Hillsborough County and the City of Tampa, public testing sites have conducted over 18,000 COVID tests to date. Vaccine update. The Florida Department of Health, Hillsborough County continues to lead the targeted vaccine area mission. The Department of Health has 12 public vaccine missions scheduled through September 15th, partnering with the Tax Collector's Office, the Children's Board Resource Center, and other community partners. Citizens can now visit the county Stay Safe page and the Department of Health page to view times and location of public vaccine events up and coming. The county will be partnering with the City of Tampa to open a public vaccine site at Lee Davis Community Resource Center later this week. Homebound residents or those unable to be served at the community testing or vaccine locations are still being served through our mobile mission. We've administered over 1,400 doses through our mobile teams and for vaccines. We continue to see ample vaccine supply in the community by pharmacy providers and other organizations with access to the vaccine. Hillsborough County will be partnering with the state of Florida and Hillsborough County DOH to open a monoclonal antibody therapy site. The Office of Emergency Management is currently working to identify a location for the public therapy site. Once identified, we will be working with communications to update our Stay Safe website and social media with the new therapy site information, including location and operating times. This concludes my updates, pending any questions.
Seeing no questions, we'll move to Dr. Holt.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This is Dr. Doug Holt, Florida Department of Health, Hillsborough County. I have asked my epidemiologist, Mr. Mike Weiss, to present the epi data with a focus on children in schools. Mike is the source of the data that I usually present. I think he lives it. He knows it in great detail. And Mike, would you do your presentation, please?
We can't hear anything if you're speaking yet.
Mike, are you on mute?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, sorry about that. Good morning, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Mike Weiss. I am the Epidemiology Program Manager here in Hillsborough County. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the COVID data, and I'm going to focus on our children in schools. And so some of the data will be focused on that age group. So starting with an overall picture of Hillsborough County, this top graph is a timeline of Hillsborough County since March of 2020, and it goes up until just last week. The red line is our 7-day average number of cases per day. The yellow dashed line is the percent positivity. The numbers on the left go with the case counts per day, and the numbers on the right align with the positivity. This top graph represents the waves that you saw in both the summer of 2020, and then you can see the increase again that we had in the winter of 2020. And really since then, we had been on a pretty steady decline up until late June. The shaded area on the top graph is then expanded down below So you can see the last 30 days of cases in Hillsborough County. You can now see that our average number of cases continues to rise and is now averaging 1,622 cases per day, and our positivity is at 22%. Both of these numbers are at the highest point that they've been at any time during the pandemic. This large increase really is corresponding with the general relaxation of control measures that we saw in the community in July, along with the introduction of the Delta variant into our community. So these two factors combined have really led to this pretty sharp increase in our cases. And additionally, as you just heard, the county has added additional testing sites. So these have been a great resource for our community to get tested, but that has identified additional cases over the last 7 to 10 days as well. So when we look at the community trend and we move into our pediatric and college population, this graph now focuses on a time from last school year in August of 2020 up until just last week as well. This graph is representing a rate per 100,000 population in each group. That allows these groups to be compared more easily. The green line on this graph is our preschool age, 0 to 4. Yellow line is our elementary age, that's 5 to 10. Middle and high schoolers are in blue, and they're 11 to 17-year-olds, and then our college age group is there in gray. College-aged cases have remained having the highest rate for almost the entire scope of the pandemic. Additionally, on here you can see that the cases in our younger age groups pretty much mirrored what I pointed out in the overall county trend, with the cases rising in the winter of 2020, generally decreasing down until about June, and then really increasing very sharply since the beginning of July. So what we're now seeing in terms of case rates for our pediatric population and college ages are again rates that are at the highest point of any point in the pandemic. This table is to display what those case rates mean in terms of the actual number of children who have COVID, and then really compare where we are right now to at the start of last school year. At the beginning of August in 2020, we had 458 cases in total in our county. And so of those 458 cases each day, about 11 were in preschool age children, 13 were in elementary age children, and 24 were in our middle and high school age. When you look at now in August of 2021, as a county, we are at that 1,622 cases per day. That's a 254% increase of where we were in August of 2020. Preschool cases are now at 70 per day, which is up 500%. Our elementary age are up to 117. That's an 800% increase. And our high school cases are up 458%. And then furthermore, when we look at our school-specific data, in the start of the first week of school in 2020, we had identified 51 students that week and 17 staff that had tested positive while attending a Hillsborough County K-12 school. During the peak of last school year, 2020 to 2021, we had 340 students test positive in 1 week, 110 staff test positive. That was the week of January 10th through 16th. So if you remember, right in line with our winter peak of community cases. And then our first week of school here in 2021, we have already identified 307 students that have tested positive and 59 staff that have tested positive. I do want to indicate that that data is very much pending. We are still updating those numbers and collecting data on that first week of school last week. I also just want to reiterate here that consistently over the past year, as cases begin to increase in our community, that's when we begin to see those increases in our children and in our schools. Moving into a few points on hospitalizations in Hillsborough County. Overall hospital visits and admissions related to COVID are both at the highest levels we've seen at any point during the pandemic. Hospitals are reporting that they actually have twice as many COVID patients right now as they did in the winter of 2020. Overwhelmingly, these hospitalizations are in unvaccinated persons. Again, hospitals reporting to us are saying that about 80 to 90% of their severely ill patients are unvaccinated. And then looking at our pediatric population, pediatric COVID cases can be severe, but really the pediatric COVID hospitalizations represent a very small percentage of the overall COVID hospitalizations. But in Hillsborough County, we have identified that both pediatric emergency department visits and pediatric hospital visits have increased over the past weeks, couple of weeks. And we do know additionally that hospitalizations tend to lag behind our increases in cases by a few weeks. So we do expect to see hospitalizations continue to increase over the near future here. And additionally, I would like to add, we have reported 2 pediatric deaths related to COVID in Hillsborough County. And then, as I mentioned earlier, pretty briefly about the recent increase in July up through August and Delta variant, Hillsborough County has increasingly seen COVID related to the Delta variant in our county. Testing of our recent COVID cases have shown that 99% of the cases are caused by the Delta variant, which is very similar to what the U.S. is now reporting as a whole. The CDC is estimating that 98% of all cases in the U.S. are Delta variant. So really at this point, it's a pretty safe assumption that if you're catching COVID right now, it is the Delta variant. And then I just want to talk briefly about COVID breakthrough cases, which is when someone who is fully vaccinated then becomes infected with the virus. We looked at Hillsborough County cases since January of 2021 up through last week, and we have identified 1,545 people who were fully vaccinated that have tested positive. So that does sound like a lot of people at first, but I've highlighted in blue here that during this same period, over 107,000 unvaccinated residents have tested positive for COVID. So as of last week, we've identified that 97% of our COVID cases have been in unvaccinated individuals. Additionally, when we look at deaths, COVID-related deaths in Hillsborough County since January of 2021, we've had 31 COVID-related deaths in fully vaccinated individuals, but we've had 642 in unvaccinated persons. I've highlighted that part in yellow down here. I also want to point out that 481 of these unvaccinated residents were over the age of 65, and 161 were under the age of 65. And then in green, I've highlighted that in fully vaccinated individuals that are under the age of 65, we have only reported 2 COVID-related deaths. So really, the big point here for me is that we are still seeing the majority of our COVID deaths in our 65 and older population. And really, it's a priority to protect our elderly community and make sure that they are vaccinated, but everyone in our community that's eligible is also getting vaccinated to prevent infecting the elderly population. And that includes getting vaccines for our 12, 13, and 14-year-olds. So that brings me to where we stand with vaccination coverage in Hillsborough County. I would like to give a shout out to the 776,000 Hillsborough County residents that have already gotten at least 1 dose. That's the yellow slice on the pie here. We have about 40% of our Hillsborough County residents fully vaccinated with the 2-dose series or the 1-dose series. We have 222,000 children in Hillsborough County. That's 15% of our population is still too young to get vaccinated. And additionally, we have 509,000 residents eligible to be vaccinated but have not yet decided to get vaccinated. And when we look specifically at our 12 to 19-year-olds, our youngest group here, 43% have at least 1 dose, 32% are fully vaccinated. And we do have 84,389 that are eligible to be vaccinated but still have not done so. So again, I would just say take advantage of all of the vaccination locations around the county, and I encourage our teenagers to go get vaccinated. So the last graph I'll present here is the percentage of each of these age groups vaccinated over the last 6 months or so. You can see kind of over time how we've made progress in vaccinating each age group. Immediately after each age group kind of became eligible, you can see a little bump up in the coverage in those age groups. The bright blue line represents our 65 and older population. They are currently at about 85% with at least one dose. Our youngest group in the green line is our 12 to 14-year-olds, and they're at about 39%. You can see the little increase that we had for that group in early August. And this is really thanks to all the back to school outreach events and getting those kids vaccinated right before returning to school. Overall, you can see that the trend here is that we are flat. A lot of these lines are very flat, meaning the pace of administering vaccines to these groups has slowed down. So it's just another reminder that the vaccines are out there and eligible for our residents, and I would encourage everyone to go get vaccinated that hasn't done so yet. So that is what I've had the chance to present today.
Thank you. Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Dr. Weiss, thank you very much for your report. I really, truly appreciate it. I just have a quick question. You've indicated 33% are unvaccinated, and then 14% of our population are kids. Is it possible to find out how many unvaccinated households with children exist in Hillsborough County? Because if masking and unvaccination is causing the greatest amount of pressures on our hospitalizations and deaths, would it be important to know how many of the unvaccinated households have children that are also unfortunately ineligible in many cases for the vaccine, in order to determine what the best policy is and protocols would be for centers that actually have large numbers of children in them, for example, our schools or community centers or anything along those lines.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult to get vaccination coverage at the household level. Data related to that is pretty difficult. We definitely make every attempt to be looking at our vaccination coverage at the deepest levels we can, which really, unfortunately, due to limitations in the way that we collect that type of information, is kind of at about the zip code level. And that is how we're making decisions about utilizing our outreach and getting vaccines out to the community. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does in some respects, and I appreciate the response. I do think it's critically important, given that the high hospitalization rates or the higher number of exposure rates are related to unvaccinated folks. Having children in our schools from households that are unvaccinated does seem to cause a higher risk to those children that may be in a vaccinated house versus an unvaccinated house. So, especially when that comes to siblings, when you have a sibling that has been exposed to, had an exposure in a classroom, what is the best method for a family to protect themselves besides vaccination? Obviously, that would be number one. But what would be the best way for a family to protect their other children if a child is exposed to COVID?
Yeah, so we take the time to walk through the options for families in these types of settings. And of course, utilizing the variety of control measures are what we're going to recommend inside the household. So, having, the vaccinated members of the household care for the person that's been exposed and possibly going to become infectious. We also recommend utilizing things like social distancing, masking, and, the testing option as well to make sure you're getting a timely test for those that are exposed so that we can better understand their infectious level. So all those are kind of counseled with these situations.
Excellent, thank you. And your last question, based on the data that you've seen since we first started dealing with this back in March, and the time periods where we've had a high utilization of mask coverage, either in schools, community centers, or in the community, in businesses, do you see a correlation between a drop in COVID positive or hospitalization rates during those time periods where there was a high utilization of masks? And would that actually be an indicator that mask usage, either in adults and or children, would actually assist us in reducing exposures to COVID?
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that question. And we get into a little of a chicken and egg situation with some of this, in that, when we see case counts rising is when we start to implement a variety of mitigation measures, including, we've used closing down businesses and shutting down certain establishments. We've used masking. We've encouraged social distancing. So being able to tease out the impact of each one of those measures becomes pretty challenging. It does seem that the collective effort that was put in during the winter wave and then the summer wave in the past, the collective mitigation measures do have an impact on reducing the transmission moving forward. But it is really difficult to point to one mitigation factor over another.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your responses. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you. That was a lot of good information. I think I have one question. It was a little bit difficult to discern from the charts, and it's just, have we seen any kind of significant bump up in those getting vaccinated in the last couple weeks?
Yeah, I apologize. It was pretty hard to see it in the last little bit of that last graph that I showed, but we did see in the very last 4 weeks or so a small relative increase in the number of doses that we were administering each week over the last 4 weeks or so. So really corresponding again with the messaging that was going out about cases are increasing, the importance of being vaccinated. Does look like it had a modest impact on increasing vaccines, but it was pretty hard to see because it is a pretty modestly small increase in vaccines over the last month or so.
Thank you. And I think all the information that you presented reiterated again and pointed again to the fact that the best thing we can do is get a vaccination, and the best thing we can do to help the some 15% of the population that's ineligible because they're under 12 years old, others who can't do so because of different medical issues or autoimmune issues, can't get the vaccination. It's up to the rest of us, I think, to do our share for that and for helping in Hillsborough County. And I guess we'll hear some here, but I do understand our hospitals are really at very, very full right now, and in Hillsborough County. And again, we have our record numbers, far more, and I think it's just not well understood that we have far more COVID in Hillsborough County by a lot, not by a little bit, but by a lot right now than we've ever had during this entire pandemic, despite our vaccinations. So, and with that, I think we're moving into the monoclonal antibody treatment.
Yes, we are fortunate. We are fortunate that we have Dr. Bornstead and Dr. Chan, both from Advent Health, West Florida, and they are going to speak about the treatment and what it is and how it helps and where it's located for Advent. Thank you.
Thank you, County Commissioners, for allowing us this opportunity to be with you this morning. I'm Dr. Brad Bjornstad. I'm the Chief Medical Officer for Advent Health West Florida Division. And with me today is Dr. Rainer Chan, who's the Chief Medical Officer for our Advent Health Medical Group. And he's in charge of our monoclonal antibody centers within our division. And so we're going to break this up into two sections. First, I'll go ahead and give you a brief overview of what monoclonal antibodies are. And then he will present to you some information about our clinics. And then obviously we'll have some time for some questions. I think we have a 4-slide presentation. Do you have that up by any chance? So thank you. If you want to go to the next slide, please. So monoclonal antibodies. Firstly, I think this is a great segue from the last conversation and to the point that was just raised. Just to let you know, our system here in West Florida currently has more than twice as many patients in the hospital as at any point ever during the pandemic, more than twice. And so we are just overwhelmed, as is every other system in the greater Hillsborough County area. So this is a significant thing that we're dealing with. And as you pointed out, vaccinations are the key element. However, there are those people who did not seek to get immunized, and there are also some individuals who have a breakthrough, as you mentioned. So there is a treatment option called monoclonal antibodies, and that is available in all the systems, inclusive of ours, and I'm glad to hear that we're going to be offering it locally. So you might ask, well, what is a monoclonal antibody? So the Regeneron company makes one called RegenCov, COV for COVID, and that's a two antibody cocktail. You can see it at the end of that letter salad that is the drugs themselves, almost impronounceable by most people. That the MAB at the end stands for monoclonal antibody. So there are two monoclonal antibodies available in this cocktail. They're called monoclonal because they come from a single clone line of cells that produces the antibodies. We've tried to represent in the lower right-hand corner what happens when the antibody is infused, and you can see the blue antibodies attached to the red spike protein. So this is a spike protein specific antibody, and that prevents the virus from being absorbed into the cell and thus prevents the virus from replicating. So that's an important principle. The drug is available under two different emergency use authorizations. Last year, one was announced for treatment, and then just recently, another one for post-exposure prophylaxis. So I'm going to talk about those individually. Again, they're not substitutes for vaccine. The antibody has only a short-term effect for several weeks, does not impose any long-term protection to the individual, which you do get with the vaccine. That's why we keep pushing on the vaccine. They're not for inpatient use. They're outpatient use only. And for the treatment, that's indicated for mild to moderate disease, those not requiring oxygen support at home, but who do have a risk of progression. And that's for children beginning the age of 12, so long as they weigh 40 kilograms, which is 88 pounds roughly, and that the infection is less than or equal to 10 days. So those are the guidelines for meeting the criteria. They were designed predominantly for people who have risk factors. I'll mention a few of those risk factors because that does weigh in on the post-exposure prophylaxis. And so those risk factors include age. You saw the number of people who die over the age of 65. So that plays a big, significant role. Others are obesity, diabetes, underlying heart disease, underlying lung disease like COPD, kidney disease. Pregnancy is important as well. Things like neuromuscular diseases, sickle cell disease, people who are device dependent, at home. And lastly, of course, and a very important one is immunocompromised individuals, either by a disease or a drug that they're taking. Now, that's not an exhaustive list. People can also qualify based on the input from their individual physician, but that's in general the list of the items recognized in the emergency use authorization for meeting criteria for being at high risk. Now, there's a post-exposure prophylaxis, which was just put in place recently, and that was designed predominantly for those who are not vaccinated or who cannot mount an immune response. As you heard, vaccinated folks in the house where there's an exposure have that added benefit, but in those who are not vaccinated or who cannot mount a decent response, this represents an option. So a couple of example options. One would be in the household where you have somebody who became exposed to somebody who's COVID positive. COVID positivity is important in both of these because you have to meet the criteria, and it is not a preventive. So COVID negative individuals as an example, would not get treatment. And likewise, if there's nobody in the household, you don't need this to prevent somebody in the household getting it. This is for after exposure. So somebody who's been exposed in the household, other individuals in the household may meet criteria. And another example that's particularly important, I believe, is in mass facilities such as nursing homes, skilled nursing facilities, congregate living facilities, where there are people who of advanced age and more likely to be immunocompromised. Those individuals are exceedingly high at risk. So when it gets into those populations, use of post-exposure prophylaxis has probably its highest utility. So again, this is to prevent people from having to be admitted to the hospital and utilize those resources that are so rare for us right now. These drugs are administered by two routes, either IV infusion or subcutaneous. If you're under treatment, the best route is by intravenous infusion, though it can be used subcutaneously for individuals who do not have access to an IV or where it might delay the treatment, or if there's a skill set of individuals who can't use IVs. And that subcutaneous route is particularly important in the use of the prophylaxis, mobile units, and those sorts of things. I'm going to let Dr. Chan talk about how the drug is administered in more detail, but it is also important that you realize that there is a time frame that it requires for this, about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending upon the route and inclusive of the check-in and the observation post-infusion. And then importantly, after the individual gets that infusion, to follow up with a primary care physician, a home health agency, a visiting home visitation by visiting provider, be that an APP like a APRN, or a physician who may visit in the home. So there are those options and others for that post-infusion follow-up. I'm going to stop there and let Dr. Chan take over relative to our clinics and talk about the infusions in more detail. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bjornstad. If you could advance to the next slide. I'm certainly excited to hear the county's plans to stand up an infusion center. And while other health systems also provide monoclonal antibody infusion treatments, I wanted to share what the process looks like at Advent Health. This is some pictures of one of our infusion sites showing the layout of individual rooms that can accommodate either a single patient or multiple patients from the same family. On the next slide, this shows our locations for outpatient infusions in the Tampa Bay area. In Hillsborough County, we have a site in Carrollwood and in Bloomingdale. Other sites around the Tampa Bay area include our Dade City and Palm Harbor location. The capacity for infusions varies and is based on hours of the location as well as our staffing resources. Our referral process would include eligible patients that are discharged from the emergency room, hospitals, urgent cares, or community physicians' offices that require infusion. And they would get funneled through a centralized scheduling process into one of these locations to be infused. In our hospitals, for example, we have care navigators that can directly schedule into these sites to make it easy. We have a provider physically at each site location, ensuring that the patient meets the eligibility criteria, and then the patient starts to get infused. The infusion itself takes about 20 to 30 minutes, and it's followed up by a post-infusion monitoring roughly about an hour period to ensure that the patient has no reactions and is stable enough for discharge. And what we do is we follow up with the patients at 24 hours, 72 hours, and again at 7 days to ensure that the patient gets better. And we can intervene either by home visits or virtual visits to make sure that they're not worsening. And certainly the goal here is to prevent hospitalization. That being said, I want to thank you for the opportunity for us to share today. And Dr. Bjornstad and myself will be available for any comments or questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Overman?
I'll make this quick. You did indicate that children over the age of 12 or 88 pounds were eligible for this. In what circumstances, when a child tests positive and is showing symptoms, would this be a recommended action or a means to reduce the impact on a child's health?
Dr. Chen, you want to take that one, or you want me to take that?
Sure, I'll take it. So if a child greater than 12 years old tests positive, they do need to meet the criteria for being at high risk to progress to a more severe stage of COVID or potential hospitalization. And that includes some of the risk factors that Dr. Bjornstad had mentioned earlier. And in a child's case, it would either be being overweight or obese, have some kind of kidney disease, diabetes, immunosuppressed, or having some chronic lung diseases as well. And so some of those may be applicable for a child.
Okay, great, thank you. And the reason I asked is that we just saw that we have a significantly high number of children that actually are testing positive, but we also have only 66 per day in the way of capacity in our region unless they're able to access it elsewhere other than through your centers. Are you familiar with other locations that may be offering this type of treatment for individuals that are at risk of experiencing symptoms that would require hospitalization at a later date?
Yes, absolutely. And that's part of our referral or our centralized scheduling, that we don't just necessarily schedule into our Advent Health system, but we are aware of other facilities that we can contact and work with to be able to get them into.
Right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your responses.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. I have one question. Do people need a doctor's referral to get this?
No. Typically, they are COVID positive already, and that's where we get the majority of our referrals. And so those referrals tend to come from physicians that find out that their patient is positive and is looking for a space. And so that's how we get in contact with the patient. There are some at-home tests as well that are approved through emergency use authorization that don't necessarily come through a physician's route, and we are able to also accommodate for those patients.
Ms. Wise.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that if the county does open, partner with the community to open these facilities, it will be by appointment only, and it will be from a physician referral in order to obtain that appointment. We will communicate all those requirements as we get forward, but I did want to clarify that.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. After this is Ms. Ziegler, the last speaker. Well, just before we move to that, again, I want to emphasize, because of all we've heard this morning, and you just heard the doctor speaking, the hospitals in Hillsborough County. This isn't elsewhere. This is in Hillsborough County. Our hospitals are overwhelmed. They're at capacity. As they said, their hospitals are more than twice as full as they've ever been in this whole time. We are on fire with COVID. We have huge numbers coming in, more than we've ever had for the last 18 months. And we're, I think, lucky to have an answer, and that those who have not gotten vaccinated have that opportunity to do that. It's free, it's available, and there's 15% of children in the county that couldn't access this monoclonal. They can't get vaccines, and as well others. And so you could take that move and get the vaccine and help us all out here. And I'll just say I was kind of compelled, moved by the statement made by the Pope with regards to this. He said that he himself was vaccinated in March, and saying that he felt it was an ethical obligation to do so. And he said vaccination is a simple but profound way of promoting the common good and caring for each other, especially the most vulnerable. I pray to God that everyone may contribute their own small grain of sand, their own small gesture of love, and get vaccinated. So I don't think I could say it, or few people could say it better than that. So I just thought I'd share that, and we can move now to Ms. Ziegler. Oh, new names just came up here. Okay, Commissioner Cohen, you're recognized.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair, for what you just said. I think that speaks very well. I just wanted to make a comment after listening to these reports and also listening to the public comment this morning. You know, the school board is meeting in an emergency session this afternoon at 1 o'clock, and the members of the school board are really facing an unprecedented situation. They are challenged by something that none of us could have anticipated, and that leaves them with really very, very few good options. Commissioner White served on the school board. People don't get elected to the school board expecting to make the types of decisions that our elected officials there are going to be called on to make. And I just want to urge the public from this dais to give these people a little bit of a break and listen respectfully. They are searching for answers to some really tough problems, and they are doing the best they can. And there is no magic bullet that any of them is going to be able to come up with to solve this problem, but they have got really mounting pressures on them from all different directions. They have conflicting advice from the state and from the health officials, and they are just trying to navigate and do the best they can. So let's just be respectful of them as they deliberate and wish them well in their deliberations and hope that they can come to a solution that will be in the best interests of our community, because I am sure that that's what all of them want, regardless of whether they agree or disagree with one another.
Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
And thank you. That was very well said, and I share that sentiment and the other concerns expressed by my colleagues here today. I have a quick question. On slide 8 of the COVID-19, or page 8, whatever, of the COVID-19 vaccinations, the total Hillsborough County residents, all ages, is listed as 1.5 million and some, but our census data, recent census data we just got is something different than that. It's 1.4 or 5 or something. So I'm just curious, as we're looking at census data here and there, why is there a discrepancy between those figures? What could explain it?
If this is Mike, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, we used the provisional 2021 census data, so that is something we can double check what the official 2021 census 2020 number was, but that's the source of that initial value.
Well, thank you. So the vaccinated people and the unvaccinated people and the ineligible people adds up to the old number, though?
Correct. The vaccinated numbers are based on Florida Shots database calculations of actual residents vaccinated. The unvaccinated and the children are kind of by math taken from the provisional total.
Okay, so that's where the difference would be, is in the simple math subtraction. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you. Interesting catch. From memory, I think it said 147, 1,470,000. So I guess I would change it by 30,000 if that's accurate. Thank you. Okay. And with that, we'll move to Ms. Ziegler.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Audrey Ziegler, Social Services Department. There's a couple of slides I think Mr. Brewer will put up, but what I wanted to do today was, first of all, thank quite a few people. This program continues to run, and without the City of Tampa merging funds with us, we would have two separate programs out there. So I really want to again take a moment to thank them for merging with us. I have a list here because there's so many people involved on a daily basis. The county attorney's office, the communications department, budget and finance, the clerk's office, Ernst & Young, the social services staff, all of the human services departments, all of the county commission offices have reached out to us, and your aides are working with us trying to get the services out there. And we've just developed and implemented time after time programs that are working and that are addressing people that are facing eviction. So again, today's purpose would be to help us promote the program again, let the residents know that as the moratorium for eviction has been expanded or extended to October 3rd, we do still have this program available. And we really want to entice landlords to work with us, and we want to have them apply to be vendors of the program, and we really want our residents that are behind on their rent to apply for the program and avoid eviction. And not only avoid eviction at this time, but also work with their landlords to start renewing their leases. We know because of the duration of COVID-19, a lot of these leases that have past due balances are now expiring or ending the term ending that they signed up for with their lease agreement. So we really need these landlords to work with us to rehouse applicants or to renew leases so that as people's lease ends, they aren't going to be able to have opportunities to be rehoused with the limited capacity we have. So I'll move on to the slide. The next one. So as you'll remember, we launched phase 1 of the program in early 2020. We helped quite a few households at that time. Of course, none of us knew how long we would be working on addressing COVID-19 impacts. So we assisted 1,600 households, administered about $3 million in services for that program. And then with the CARES funding, again, we launched phase 2, which was towards the end of last year. Helped another 5,200 households, dispersed another $32 million. And then that leads us to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program that we're currently administering now. That program launched in March of this year. And I have some new numbers that, some new updated numbers since this slide was prepared. We're actually at assisting 5,839 households, and we're obligated at $19.3 million. Again, the eviction for moratorium has been extended, so we do have a little bit more time, but we are concerned that once that eviction moratorium lifts, what crisis we'll be experiencing as people are being evicted or as their landlords don't want to work with them to update the past due balance and work with them to sign a new lease. The criteria of the program is below. Less than 80% AMI. They have to be impacted by COVID-19, and the way we're checking on that is basically the customer can attest to how the COVID impacted their finances, so they don't have to provide a proof for that. We've simplified that. So basically they're providing their ID, their social security card, proof of their tax return, and they're attesting to tax return would be used to determine eligibility for the financial part of the criteria. And then they would attest to the COVID impact and provide their lease or their current rental obligation. They're able to apply on our portal, and that link is provided at r3.hcsflgov.net. We do have a call center available, and the call center has upwards of 80 representatives answering calls, so there's not a long wait. They're very versed in the criteria. They're able to help. Anything they can't help with is being escalated to the social services staff, and we're addressing those concerns on the same day. We do have our community resource centers open again, and we are offering in-person services. So if you don't have Wi-Fi, if you need help with the application, don't understand something, then you can pop into one of those centers Monday through Friday, and we do have case managers available to help with that application. And then all of the criteria and all of the information about the program is located at the Hillsborough County webpage, hcflgov.net/R3HomeHelp. One of the things, or two of the things we recently added to the program as of August in talking to landlords and talking to some of the legal nonprofits that are working with tenants to help them avoid eviction is we figured that we would incentivize landlords a little bit more and offer a 3-month prospective benefit. So anyone who's eligible for up to 12 months of their past due balance, they can also be eligible for up to 3 months paying forward. So that offers some security to the landlords, knowing that someone that's been in a past due balance won't be in a past due balance going forward because they'll have that 3-month prospective benefit paid in full with the past due benefit being paid at the same time. we also added any fees that are on the lease. So if someone has a pet or washer and dryer, they've been assessed late fees, anything that the lease says that can be charged to the tenant based on the lease obligation, we're able to add those fees back in. And those two benefits were recently added as early, I believe at the beginning of August. And those will be ongoing as we have funds available. The next slide. So this slide here shows you when we launched for landlords to register to be a vendor of the program. We offered webinars and did some training for them to let them know how the program would work. We then launched for tenant applications. And what the system does is on the back end, it tries to match up based on customer name and address. It matches up the tenant applying for services with the landlord who's registered to be a vendor of the program. There is an option within the criteria that if the landlord does not want to participate as a vendor but will provide verification of the past due balance, we are able to pay the residents or tenant directly for the past due balance. Some of the program metrics here, and these are a little bit old, and the program's moving fast and we're receiving quite a few applications. I know you may have seen on the news that programs are slow, and while our particular program is running a little slower than we had anticipated, it certainly has a consistent and steady flow of applications. So we're not seeing the lull in applications or expending funds that you're hearing about on the news. That seems to be more associated with the program the state launched after us, but our program is getting funding out on a consistent basis. So we've had 12,573 applications submitted. You'll see the application and denial rate there. A lot of applications are submitted more than one time. So if someone's denied for some reason and didn't follow through with their initial application, the applications include anyone that's reapplied. The program also allows residents to continue to reapply as they become past due again. So you'll see some of the applications are a little bit inflated with applicants and applications reapplying. Applicant eligibility approval rate, we're at 47%, and that speaks to what I was telling you how well our program is doing. The average award for shelter benefit is $3,000, and you'll see that inflate going forward because that doesn't include the 3-month perspective that we recently added. What we're seeing is our residents are more like 2 and 3 months past due behind, and so once residents receive their tax refunds or a lot of the stimulus funds, we know that they were putting some of that funding towards their rental agreement, and so may not be as far past due as everyone had anticipated. We also have seen quite a few residents that have maxed out their credit cards, trying to maintain the relationship with the landlord and stay current on their rent. The average electric bill the award has been about $216 for that benefit, and then about 4,200 of the applications we processed have been paid directly to the landlord rather than the tenant. And then on this side, you'll see some of the financial impact, which the 17 million is more like 19 million, 19.3 obligated. We have quite a few landlords with all their properties registered, and those are the landlords that have said they want to participate in the program. We have 372,192 residents available for tenant matching. So as landlords and tenants are applying, we're able to match those on the back end, and that's a heck of a lot of units that are registered in the system. Our call center, as I mentioned, is super robust. You can see how many calls we've taken. We're taking about 50 calls a day from landlords and over 400 calls a day from tenants. So I was supposed to be brief, and I hope I did so, and I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you, and I just want to thank Ms. Ziegler for all her hard work. There's been a lot of activity behind this to make sure that the residents are aware of it. I'd like to see if it's possible we can ask communications to carve out that presentation as a single YouTube video so that we can share it among communities, or at least use our community groups to show the videos in their Zoom meetings or otherwise, so that we get the information out there. I think that would be a great way of making sure the community knows that there's still money available for individuals that are in need of assistance due to COVID, and want to keep them in their homes and make sure they don't get displaced. You mentioned in your report that there was about a 52% denial rate, and it sounded like some of that is because of double applications. But what would you say is the largest reason for denial? Is it income or other issues? What would you suggest, Ms. Ziegler?
Thank you for asking that. So what we're not able to verify for you is how many applicants are trying to apply for the program that are initially going in for the screening phase of the program. And because of the amount of income they're putting into the system, it's automatically telling them that they're over the income guidelines. So that's one area that we don't know about. But what I would say our exact denial rate looks like to me is incomplete applications, and a lot of them have to do with landlords who are not participating with the program. So as I mentioned, if a landlord is not registered in the program to be a vendor so that we can make the eligible check for benefit paid to them, we are asking that they validate, at least for their tenant, what the past due balance is. Without knowing exactly from the landlord what the past due balance is, and even if we have to pay the benefit directly to the tenant, we're not able to approve that benefit. So that's a large percentage of the numbers that we're seeing in addition to the incomplete applications. So we could work with landlords and make sure that they understand, this program is to make them whole as far as, the funding that they haven't been able to collect while the moratorium is in place, just as much as it is for the residents to stay out.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your response. I appreciate all your work.
Thank you. It's a really robust program, so hopefully we'll be helping a lot of people in Hillsborough County. And it's just a few minutes before noon, but it looks like we've gone through most of the agenda, so I'm going to, I don't know, do we want to take a break or do we want to just power through? We have pretty limited agenda left. Yes.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner White.
we only have 3 items remaining, is
I
that
know.
correct? I think they'll be pretty quick ones. So.
Right, I do too. I just wanted to ask because we've had a lot of questions before, so I just wanted to make sure. Okay, and with that, Ms. Wise.
Thank you. We will move to the regular agenda. And speaking of housing, this is item B1. This is to approve an issuance by the Housing Finance Authority for 559 multifamily units. Mary Helen Ferris from the County Attorney's Office will present this item.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is another affordable housing project funded in part by the Housing Finance Authority in conjunction with the Tampa Housing Authority. It's the Belmont Heights Estate. It was an old public housing project that was torn down and rebuilt using the HOPE 6 program. So this money will be used to acquire and rehabilitate. It's for low-income folks, and there's certain set-asides for elderly. And as usual, there's no county funds involved, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Just as a comment, yay, yay, and yay. Okay, thank you very much.
And seeing no further board discussions,
Second.
please record your vote. I'm sorry, Commissioner Overman made the motion, Commissioner Myers seconded it. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you.
Ms. Wise.
Thank you. The next item is item B2. This is for the Thonotosassa Library and Expanded Park in the Thonotosassa community to provide recreational and educational opportunities. John Muller is here to present the item. We have representatives from Rick Valdez from Parks and Andrew Breidenbrough from Libraries if needed as well, and Anne Marie Lenton from Real Estate if necessary. We'll turn it over to John.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Muller, Director of Facilities Management and Real Estate Services. Item B2 is a request for your approval to purchase and have staff complete the 0217 Main Street in Thonotosassa from John and Melissa Benson for $1,310,016, plus another approximately $50,000 in closing costs. In support of this future Thonotosassa combined parks and library site. This agenda item also requests approval to revise the project scope for the Thonotosassa Library Replacement Phase 1 project to include this land acquisition as well as the current scope of planning and design. If you can please put up the area and zoom in as I speak on this, please. Please note that a supermajority of 5 votes is required for approval as the purchase price is 7% or $85,000 higher than the average of two appraised values. Staff's recommendation to you is that this higher value is justified. The property, as you can see on the overview, is contiguous to our existing 9.11 acre site to the south, thereby creating an additional value of an overall 55.14 acre site. As well, this new 55 acre parcel will be located adjacent to the Thonotosassa Elementary School, many of whom students will utilize both the library and the park. And lastly, if you look at the upper northeast corner, there is a yellow line along a blue hashed area. This is the 5 acre parcel that the sellers will remain for their own house. However, they have graciously also provided a 12-foot wide by 475-foot right-of-way along Main Street for entry improvements and infrastructure. I'll stop there, and as Ms. Weiss mentioned, the department representatives are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a couple of comments. I want to say I'm really excited about this agenda item. You may recall back in April, I brought to the board the concept of creating a very special destination in Thonotosassa by co-locating a much-needed library and park amenities. John did a great job in introducing the item. I want to thank staff who's worked tirelessly on this, from our Parks Department, Library Services, Real Estate Department. I know Greg Hordell has worked hard on this as well. As I mentioned last time, while other communities, Keystone, Seffner, and others, you have both a library and various park amenities at the same location, this would be Hillsborough County's first planned co-location library and park project. Just like Carrollwood Village has become a model for passive county parks, I believe this project will be a model for future co-location projects. It makes a lot of sense because not only is there such a need, but by proactively planning this provides an excellent opportunity to maximize the benefits of both the library and park amenities for a community that desperately needs it. We'll recognize significant cost savings by leveraging both assets, everything from reducing overall land cost. You can have shared parking, common stormwater, and other utilities. And it allows to consolidate park amenities at one location instead of having a split site as currently exists now. And as John said, the fact that the location is adjacent to Thonotosassa Elementary provides a great opportunity to enhance both educational and physical activities. Again, I want to say that both library services and parks are very excited about this. It's the #1 project on library services list. Andrew has it fully funded. So again, I just want to thank staff for all of their hard work, and I'm pleased to move approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner White. Commissioner Myers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Short comments. This is a win-win for the county. I hope we can do more of these type of projects between the library and Parks Department. It just shows when we come together how we can serve our community very, very well.
Thank you. And I'll just, I think it's a great project. It seems like there's a lot of enthusiastic support. I was just a little concerned, I'll just share, with the other location, when I could see on the map that there was a grid right next to it, and I've really emphasized the fact that I wanted libraries to be kind of within communities as a resource. But the moving of this library is 1.6 miles. I was concerned it might be further. And I also had talked to staff at the time, because it seems like a really good opportunity to put a trail from the location of the grid that is more to the east side and where the library was, over to the west where this is, some kind of trail, so that neighborhood that's there, which I assume is going to be having some redevelopment opportunities and things like this as we move forward in the future, but I think it'll be a good connector. And so I think it's all good, great project. And with that, seeing no further comments, if we can, we have a motion by Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner White. Please record your vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Ms. Wise?
Thank you. The final regular agenda item is the CIT item regarding our interlocal agreements with our agencies and to pay tax collector commissions. Tom Fessler is here to present this item, B3.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tom Fessler, Chief Financial Administrator. I am presenting to you today item B3. Item B3 is an item that we usually bring to you once a year. This is related to additional community investment tax revenues that are in excess of what we had budgeted. Typically, we budget on a very conservative basis our revenues every year. In addition to that, we are required to budget our revenues at 95% of what we are actually estimating them to be at. This item is necessary so that we can take the additional revenues that have been received, and we're required to distribute out to each of the cities within Hillsborough County a portion of those revenues, along with the school board and the Tampa Sports Authority. That's why we have to appropriate these revenues at this time. This agenda item basically has three components. The first one is to appropriate $34.4 million in additional revenue and appropriations. $16.3 million of those dollars will go out to the various agencies I just mentioned. $18.1 million will stay with Hillsborough County as the county's portion of the revenues. Of the county's portion of the revenues, $10 million, we're recommending that $10 million be appropriated for the county's bridge improvement program, $5 million for the county's intersection improvement program, and $3 million would go to reserves. And with that, I'm available for any questions. I guess the other two pieces of that, or the other piece of that, is we are appropriating $120,000 in reserves from the tourist development tax reserves in order to properly pay tax collector commissions, because tourist development taxes have also exceeded revenues.
Thank you.
I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. And Commissioner Hagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I'll be brief. When you look at the item, as far as the county's portion, I guess 10 million is going for bridge improvements, 5 million for intersection improvements, and then we have an additional 3 million into the reserves. And I just want to say on the record that for me, and those are certainly necessary, we have needs there, but for me, road resurfacing and sidewalks are my priority. Judging by other board members' comments at previous workshops, I know it's a priority for some of you as well. As Tom said, we had to appropriate the revenues, but it's my understanding essentially they're placeholders, for lack of a better term. I know a public hearing is required if we want to utilize some of these monies for resurfacing. So I'm not suggesting today any particular number. However, I am saying I do want some of this money to be used in those areas that, you know, we've all, or maybe not all of us, but some of us have identified as priorities. So I guess the question for Bonnie, what's the best way to consider this? I know you had mentioned during our briefing is that we may have we will have a future discussion on, I guess, future CIT availability and other things. Is that the appropriate time, or when should we consider, if the board ultimately is inclined to shift some of those? I'm not suggesting we use all the money in resurfacing, but we have a need, we all know that, and I strongly think some of it should use in that area. So if the board is inclined to consider that, what's the best method or avenue to do that?
Thank you for asking that. We know that resurfacing is a high priority for this board, and we suggest that you hold a public hearing in October in order to make the resurfacing a CIT eligible project. And that would give us the opportunity for when monies become available, that we will have that already approved through the public hearing process, and we could allocate the dollars accordingly. So that's what we would recommend, that we schedule that for October sometime.
And then we would essentially, I guess, approve using resurfacing or sidewalks as an appropriate source, and then we can determine at that time if or how much we would put in that category?
Yes, this and any other monies that become available too from CIT. Because we do expect over time, now, yes, we don't have many years left on the CIT, but we are seeing some excess revenues in excess of our debt service, and that would provide that ability to move those monies to that purpose.
So should the October public hearing be included in the motion, or should it be a separate motion, or does it need to be included, I guess?
We could be working on that for asking you to get that scheduled for a future meeting.
Okay, so that doesn't need to be included in this motion?
I don't think so.
Okay. With that, unless there's any board objection, I'll move approval of the item today, but I would like for that to come back for a future discussion. Thank you.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner Overman. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Well, I want to echo Commissioner Hagan's sentiments. I've certainly expressed that resurfacing and sidewalks are a priority for me. I did request an accounting of the intersection programs that would be funded with this appropriation, as well as the bridge projects. None of the intersection programs are in my district. One of the bridge projects is in my district, so I would like to request a briefing from staff to let me or my staff, either one, just give us an idea of what kind of shape that particular bridge is in, before I entertain the idea of shifting any appropriation there. But certainly, I would be on board with shifting, these appropriations where we can, as well as making resurfacing and sidewalks a priority for any future CIT funding that might come into the coffers.
We can do that. A few of you did ask for that information, and I think it's appropriate to share that with all of you.
Thank you. I was going to say that as well, because I asked for that as well, and just to keep track and to understand and to know where the our dollars were being used, to have more information in detail. So with that, seeing no further discussion, there's a motion by Commissioner Hagan, seconded by Commissioner Overman, and seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. And with that, Ms. Wise, I think we're on future items.
Yes, we are.
And are there any future items? Great. With that, we stand adjourned. I'm sorry, Commissioner Hagan, you're recognized.
Okay, thank you. This will be quick. Many of you, I'm sure, have received emails like I have about issue that's going on up in my district in New Tampa and Pebble Creek community with the golf course closing down and the possibility of it being developed with a developer coming in, and it's really got the community up in arms. They're really concerned about the future of what's going to take place there. Many have asked the possibility of the county, if there's any possibly ELAP purchasing the land, or if there's any possibility of the county potentially taking over the golf course, things of that nature. So what I would just like to do is ask the county, have staff come back just with the report on, is there any value, does that make sense, is it even a possibility, and we can have a discussion in the future. So with that, thank you.
Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I've dealt with similar issues out in my district over the years with closed golf courses, and oftentimes that's the ask, is that they be made into a trail amenity or something like that. But I'd like to maybe consider having, Ms. Wise, your staff, maybe at a land use meeting, bring something to the board that would at least looking into the future. I don't think we can really change anything that's on the books today, but in the future, I would like to see us not put residential or commercial, for that matter. I don't want to see any density entitlements put on future golf courses, because when someone buys on a golf course, there's a reasonable expectation that that's green space in perpetuity. But That's oftentimes not the case. I have found through the years when I've dealt with similar matters to what Commissioner Hagan here is dealing with, oftentimes there are entitlements on those golf courses, and that comes as a great shock to the community. So that's something I'd like to at least address looking forward so that we don't commit some of the sins of the past.
And we did do a pretty contentious item on that in New Tampa more recently, but it's not just Hillsborough County, and I've seen several prospective cases, but all over the country, all over the nation, they're dealing with this because golfing is in decline, and all of a sudden what was an expectation, at the time, and no one ever imagined anything else, is now coming back to us. And so I think to look at it in a broader possibility is a good notion, and it's frankly, too, one of the things that motivates me when I talk about there are easements, conservation easements over lands. This isn't necessarily appropriate or would have been in the past, but, we have these expectations that actually were even bargained for in the past that we didn't do anything to protect that. So I think it could even maybe be a little broader, but I think golf courses are a big focus. Commissioner Cohen, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you. I want to echo the sentiment of taking a holistic approach to looking at this. We have the exact same problem brewing in Apollo Beach, and people do have an expectation when they live on a golf course that they're not going to see a subdivision be built where there used to be green space. And the frustration is really palpable when you live right there and are staring at it. So I just want to echo the sentiment to take a broader look at that and see what we can do. We have multiple places in the county where this is a problem.
Yes, you're recognized.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Cohen. And I want to once again highlight the word reasonable. I think it's a reasonable expectation when people live on a golf course that it's not entitled. And it comes as a great shock to people when they learn that. So.
Thank you. And with that, it looks like no further discussion, and we stand adjourned.